Three guys appear in front of us, explaining that a real adventure requires three main ingredients: inexhaustible energy for any business, determination to maintain their own intentions, and sincere heart, which divides feelings for ancestors. He returns to friends with a proposal to look for remains, but soon a quarrel breaks between them because he begins to dictate how to act. What is skillet? Soon we will find it out. In short, in this world there is a blessing ceremony that orphans such as these guys can receive after 14 years. Adult men reflect on one of the characteristic features of human nature. The only hope for these four was an escape from a terrible situation. The kingdom of Centillion was represented, which flourished 5 years ago. Someone noted that this year's ceremony was extremely refined and bright. The first guy, named Credron, was handed his personal frying pan, the highest quality product that corresponded to the magic of the great sage. The SETI girl was given a unique double gift: the power of holy and medical water. And the third child, Liberal, was given the skill of courage, which, when used properly, proves its irreplaceability. A huge service. The force gifted to poor people to combat spooky monsters and demons influenced even the fate of one particular grandfather. Rod is convinced that it will become the most prominent magician in the world, and the girl inspires him to accomplish. Grandfather advises her to return to the church because her forces are related to the blessed holiday, and she obeys this order. Meanwhile, Liver reports that he has grown. The blessings given by God impose a duty on those whom they touched. The old man informs it to children who joyfully perceive the news and notice the fourth satellite in their company. It was Ruya that had no skills. It was because of this that the children did not pay attention to her at all. The child was depressed and could not understand why she was left without ability. Someone reassured Russia, reminding that she was not the only one who had not found the gift. This year's ceremony, next to it, there were 4 participants, but this situation was extraordinary. It is unprecedented that at once 3 people managed to acquire the highest level skills. However, Rufia cannot understand why he has received these abilities, and thinks it is a god. The father warned not to despair and advised to return to the usual life. That is how ordinary people exist. If you understand his words, let you act according to them. Suddenly the guy was called by strangers. Friends reassure him, saying that they take care of him. Although they are children, they manage to reach this day through mutual support. Believe them, though they insist that everything has changed now. The children began to smile, saying that the boys would soon become successful, and this guy should go in search of treasure. They departed from him, not stopping laughing at it, and the child plunged into even deeper despair. His gradual ejection began. The apostle gives him the last advice. Many people with mediocre ambitions are often convinced that without the necessary skills of increasing levels is a futile affair. Russia perceives it as a fantasy, and his grandfather insists that to fight the monsters, kill them, and gain experience without proper skill is an absolutely senseless idea. Claiming that unusualness is not a sin, he strongly pushes the guy to go to the forest, hoping to get new forces, but instead to become a prey of demons. Recklessness is only allowed for naive fools. His will indicates that no one is upset, even if he died. The world will not lose anything. The pathetic orphan will change his life if he can master this gift during the blessing rite. Rivia is convinced that he has already lost the single rate he made in his lifetime. Remember, it seems that Zeta and Krydrat have received a real bush. The protagonist is genuinely rejoiced in these so-called friends, but does not dare to voice it. He tells it only to himself, because after such events it is difficult for him to feel true happiness. He does not restrain his tears. His emotions come out, like the true fluid of the soul. Dark thoughts envelop the guy's mind, and he cannot understand why life itself gave him such fate. Subsequently, he ceases to rush into hysteria and, while maintaining cold-bloodedness, begins to calmly plan his future. It is the question of how to build your life now. If he continues to exist in loneliness, as before, then, after all, his fate will be doomed to failure. He thinks of what steps will help to avoid this ultimate result, and understands that he has to cut back in the game again, to take risks in another case. It is unclear how many hundreds of thousands of people without proper skills were called and defeated. The likelihood that this could happen in his current position was extremely low. It is said that the level they reach when growing in the city and is the first, but this is probably not important. From this point to survive and at least a little victory, the guy realizes there is no other way out. Family, wealth, friends, Anyone who has nothing to lose in spite of everything can show great ingenuity. He defeated his first monster. Rua considers so incredible, but I am convinced that he will once again be able to overcome such enemies. Even the weakest hairs that seemed untouched to him could impress him. The boy began to bleed again, covered by fear. However, he ran every day, suffering new damage. Although there were no serious injuries, numerous scratches indicated the danger. If it continues, the consequences can be very negative. In the end, everything seems meaningless. This is how the child raises a question. People deprived of the necessary skills try to climb a new level, but their attempts end tragically. They receive maltodef. The best thing for him is to live an ordinary life. In a person who is not aware of his position, a dream arises, however, when he faces reality. He sees only that. At the end of the path, only one level remains, a person without skills and brothers. Get back now is a real chance to survive. But since his death was inevitable regardless of his chosen path, the guy confidently moved forward. In the heart of the forest, his path crossed the majestic blue dragon. Not suspecting the fear that this creature carries, it moves forward. According to rumors and legends, it was this dragon that put an end to the life of the most bold adventurers and instantly destroyed the innumerable cities and villages. He does not know what to do next, because he accepted the inevitability of his death. He heard the voice that he was not aware of where, and here was a dragon. He believed that he heard the voice of this legendary creature. The dragon spoke about his courage, as, driven by the will of the sky, he boldly descended to the ground, not expecting to meet with such an unusual phenomenon. The dragon insists that the guy is wrong. He is not an ordinary dragon, but a real, determined by the power of the dragon. After he told the man that his inevitable fate had changed his life path, influenced the will of heaven and united them together, he asked that the guy wanted in the future. The guy does not understand what it is about. The dragon states that no matter what the guy wants, a true desire can only come through his own efforts. He must act himself until a sincere, deep desire goes down, and until he extends his hands to him, because neither the sky nor the gods will send him anything without his participation. After that, he again asks the question, what does this child want? He is noticed. He cannot understand what is happening. He does not trust the creature with his wings, but he dares to express his desires openly. When the dragon heard the answer, he laughed, but stated that it is possible to agree, but there is one condition. I have incredible force, even despite the absence of those skills that God should give me. Undoubtedly, it is not a problem for him. The guy asks if he can hand it to you. He stated that neither the sky nor the earth would give him what he is looking for. The guy must grasp his desire and cherish him. Everything that depends on is to help the child get what he wants and avoid excesses. He asks, is that so? Isn't this the will of the sky? But how can it be? The dragon replies that he will tell everything briefly. Serpent Dragon Con Umanus will become a sinister for the boy, hardening him because of ruthless beating. Although the guy will be exhausted, it does not frighten me. Years of tireless training have passed, and Ruya matured. Time was unnoticed between all events. One of the students came to the teacher to repeat the exercise, but the mentor strongly stated that he had already fallen for him, and advised to check his staff. The image of Destro is presented. It is characterized by extremely high qualities. The guy is constantly convinced that he has neither talents nor skills, and so he should train more. However, the dragon has several significant remarks for him. People cannot reach a level exceeding 90. He can't believe his words and asks, is it all because you trained with him? However, the dragon answered only one phrase. The dragon serpent has a limit of 10 million levels, and thanks to his cooperation with him, his strength has only increased. It was this moment that was perfect to stay in the area. The guy was not fully aware of what benefit he was waiting. He dreamed of achieving such a force that he could overcome his lack of skills and possibly approach the desired. The teacher mocks. They say he will cry from memories, but the guy replies that he only remembers his true hellish experience. Thank you very much for watching. After worshipping the dragon, he receives the last farewell from him. The force that the young man gained, he developed and mastered. As the free-thinking noted, no one gave him anything. As for the gift itself, let it stay between us. And students say goodbye to each other on this wonderful day. Rock has moved to a new level, and now it's time to go and make the guy's request. Dragons. The teacher lifted the flight and disappeared, and the guy, not hiding the hope, asked, Will we meet again? The dragon Sinia replied that if the fate solves it, then such a meeting would definitely happen. These 5 years were reminiscent of a dream when every moment, including it, seemed quite real. Suddenly behind him, a silhouette appeared, and he noted. Before him, he spread as a crowd of months. The goblins, and angry with them, he turned to strike them. They prevented him from enjoying his memories. Again, he could not hold back when Goblin crumbled into small particles. The corpses are not left, and they do not poke. Absolute chaos prevails somewhere at 10,000. After the destruction of goblins, he thought. What to do next? He not only became physically stronger thanks to tireless workout. This path also became a period of purification of his soul from the remains of the image that arose in Australia. During the training, the guy convinced himself that, having gained power and moving to a new level, he would certainly laugh at those friends who were betrayed. But then this desire of revenge gradually faded. He risked his life to the limit, and all his efforts were in vain. But it could no longer last. He remembered what little boy he was when he reached the age of 5. He had to launch his plan again. Even by giving up his exceptional skills, he could make ends with the ends thanks to a decent task. Walking in the middle of the mountains, he quietly sang a tune that suddenly attracted his attention. The man who warned him. A journey by this area alone can be a real danger. I guessed that it was probably mountain robbers, but they offered to accompany him so that he could see everything with his own eyes. If they do not use violence to confiscate his belongings, then their true goal is the guy himself. He is directly asked if people are being stolen. He receives the answer. Such words despise their honor, because these men are ordinary people, friendly, though somewhat lecherous. If he has any useful skills. After a quick inspection of the environment, the robbers were convinced that the slave trader was ready to pay a lot for such prey. Even if he is lying, it does not matter to robbers. They are only attracted to money. The hero emphasizes that they are powerless, and it seems to him that they have become accustomed to putting the label, source of ink. Shocked, he killed him on his own, convinced that this guy has urine, that this frying pan is perfect for unexpected blows. It is really unsurpassed. The man decides to kill him because he will not become a simple product. He is aware that even after the death of their friend, the bandits still enjoy the highest quality prey, which reveals their crazy essence. Bandits start their actions. In just a few seconds, the bandits will already unfold their ruthless actions. The neighborhood is crowded with corpses. The bandit desperately asks the protagonist to spare him, but he strongly refuses. He knows that if you allow criminals to live, they will certainly continue murder and trafficking in human beings, as they have already done. He does not look like a ruthless man, indifferent to the murderers. Instead of removing him from this backward condition for a few days and trying to make a person, it is much more appropriate to kill him immediately. Suddenly, someone starts calling. The tape stated that while he headed to LU, that guy eliminated everyone. He describes his ability as mighty, not suspecting that she really is. At first, everyone believes that he has a perfect ability to reinforce, but Proteinist categorically denies. He has no such force. It is endowed with the ability to increase force by 10% and seeks to join. The protagonist, surprised that, having a frying pan, he still wanders on the mountains as a freelance fighter with the law. Although he considers himself elected, another person does not share his belief. He explains that the essence of force is to share it with others, not to use it exclusively for themselves. However, although the man has this ability, he only uses it for his own benefit. In addition, he is actively trying to harm others. Breakin abruptly insults this man, but the program is quietly accepting his proposal to test his strength. From the ground, the guy lifts it, although he himself is 5 times smaller than this object, and holds it with one hand. He does not put it on the ground, but carries it alive. The guy notices something. There was a tiny man who immediately ran to him. The guy asked, "Are you a slave trader who taught to work with these bricks?" As for the guards, the man categorically denied the accusation, explaining that he first met them on the road during the transportation of goods. Today, his shop is preparing to close. The man confidently declares his strength and suggests that in such circumstances, he may be able to find the use of our hero. During the reward, he promises to pay the guy 3 times more than he owed the buns. Evaluating the power of Rumi, he proposes to become his partner. The taste continued, emphasizing what wonderful business it was conducted by his interlocutor, and even noted that his profession was rating in 16th place among the most desirable. Interested in finances, he suggested paying the salary to money, and killing him. Only one wet spot remains. All this is happening for the benefit of the world and its inhabitants. He starts knocking on the carriage door, warning loudly, "If there is someone, get ready to run." Among the passers-by noticed a little girl. Could she be a victim of abduction? The kingdom of the Centicilium, the center of Shimano Rufashin. A girl whose skills are about to improve on the screen. She is asked about desires, and seemingly friendly people promise to help with the choice of new clothes. It is panic. An endless choice opportunity was opened in front of her, and she does not know where to start. This is the first experience of staying in such a sophisticated store, so feel uncertain. She seeks help to the main character. He sat on the bench as if trying to keep peace, but instead of true enthusiasm, he felt only annoyance. It was almost predictable for this city. At the moment, the girl confessed that he was ready for everything, only he would take her from this place. She clarifies whether she is really ready to take any action. For example, "I propose to return to her native land," which clearly caused the girl. He confesses to her that another blessing ceremony took place. From that day, an unusual, tense atmosphere hung over the village, and one night when it slept peacefully, it was suddenly attacked. She understands that she was a victim of abduction by robots. According to them, for a young girl with such rare skills are true invaluableness. The heroine wondered how the slave traders were able to learn about its existence. It turned out that the gossip went in the village, and inevitably these rumors came to the hands of robbers. The child did not want to go home or watch the video again. He gently took her to his hugs and assured that they were coming to a certain place soon. He dreamed of becoming an adventure seeker, but a number of circumstances brought them here. But is this the right solution? The gift from Bag and Snake Teachers was a golden horse, and he thought about its essence. The girl expressed her gratitude, but he never understood why she was so passionately given to her feelings. They were currently in the capital of Center Kill. Kyle asked, interested in a large-scale construction on a floating island, to which he replied that it was a castle. The girl immediately made an assumption that the king settled there. He asked if they did not want to go, but the little girl scared the horrible look that appeared before her eyes. The head of the adventure guild named Londite said the girl was not suitable for her fear, and the young man near her showed a strong determination. He confesses that 5 years ago, when he was near her, he felt absolutely numb. These words immediately caused the girl's memories. The protagonist called the girl Aunt, but never offended her. In particular, he did not call ugly, as others did. He carefully asked how things were in the rest of the company. He told him that people with unique abilities are now being actively recruiting. He noted that this is a typical condition for the church. It still remains a small group, without additional recruits. He explains that it was for this reason that he chose independent workouts, so that even without special skills, everyone could safely go to the swirl of adventures. Ready to reach out of help, he always finds himself in the mess. The girl also started asking questions. She noted that Mr. Rowe was an unpredictable figure. It was he who saved her when the criminals stole the girl. He turned out to be an extraordinary person who promised unforgettable adventures. This is how this child perceived it. A child's friend easily treats events, smiling and declaring that the guy was his true friend. He invites him to recreate those actions that are inherent in every true adventurer. Thanks to his convincing words, Lundit immediately accepted him to the ranks of true adventurers. He was surprised that there was no sign of the skill among the whole set of things, and the girl, laughing, joked that an infinite number of times accompanied him during training. The beginning of the events was marked by the meeting of the protagonist with her. He was soon attacked by the slave trader and his or her Sipk, whom he immediately destroyed. The knight praised him, because outside the city of murder with his bare hands almost do not happen. Slabagers hide a thing among their products that can be extremely useful. The main character gave her slave trading accounts, contracts, and even client habits records. The girl courageously resisted him, despite the fact that he had already taken another person's life. Lundit conveys the most dramatic tiny object, because he sees that he is able to manage it skillfully. Guild card containing all the necessary information for registration. He smeared his blood on a special subject. There was a characteristic of Russia on the screen, which caused his surprise, because he reached only 70. That the guy will soon come back because he has already left. Check his statistics and calm down. It now appears on your screen. He thoughtfully thinks why the level turned out to be that. Lundit reported that one of the works mentioned the possibility of reaching a maximum of 99 levels, although she never faced such a person in real life. The hero receives a new rank, reaching 50 levels. But when someone crosses the border of the 60th, he already becomes a real legend. In other words, the card is not designed to demonstrate levels above 99, so it only reflects the last 2 digits. The main character reached an incredible level, 8,347,907. Completed. The night when the law prevailed, it was unexpectedly interrupted. All through that tiny detail. She insists that she was brought there because she wants to work unwaveringly. She underwent a consecration rite, becoming a true and mature personality. So there is no reason to give up even in view of the principles of guild. Undergo the registration procedure with the student. The knight asked her question, whether she was ready, as a skilled adventurer, to use her skull, which has repeatedly brought her great achievements. One of the characters asks if you can simply not show it, but the girl quickly replies that the object is already equipped with a crew. He understood that this task was extremely difficult for a girl, but at that moment the child shouted what was ready to do it. She joins Ryo-san as an adventure finder, because her determination is not hidden in the slightest shadow of doubt. Knight appreciated her answer, and handed her a map that clearly marked the location of the knife. The girl cut when she tried to open the bank. The screen demonstrates a portrait of the girl, revealing the details of her character. We find out that her name is not. Without understanding the essence of the alchemical king's skill, Lei Knight panicized and immediately began to look for a list of skills. It turned out that it was the highest level of alchemy, the qualification of SSS. However, Noam never grasped it, the highest class craft complex which combined the functions of a blender, kuzar, and mechanic. Already the presence of one single alchemist could disrupt the prices of the whole city to heaven. Lu Hanet now felt a real pleasure in this perspective. Everyone was convinced that the pan is extraordinary, but her reaction had already confirmed everything. He learns that at home he had a real swirl. She considers herself a real treasure, because with the advent of such a frying pan, everyone will surely lose her head. She suddenly realizes that this is how you happen to you. The girl states loudly that she wants to be with Rudy as Anna, and to trust everyone. He mastered a sense of distrust of others, which led to the destruction of all previous life connections. The guy is able to come to her help. No doubt he will not refuse to do so. A moment when someone turned. A man named Mashao, a master of the ghostly hand skills, suggested a girl friendship, convinced that together they will be able to reach higher positions in the rating. He called her cute and said that together they would be able to create a real day and night of a phantom, saying that a better couple could not be desired. He drives the arrogant man, declaring that he knows perfectly. He seeks to be near Ulma. He engulfed rage, and disdainfully calling the main character garbage, he rushed at him with the intention of killing. Legal self-defense is announced this night. He could boast of his ghostly hands, but something happened to them. A few minutes later, Ru and Noam moved southeast of the city, moving in the set direction. She noted how he was skillfully dealt with that man, and suddenly added that she fell in love with him again. This confession made a great impression on the main character. He was worried that he may have offended that man, but Lauded assured him he was already spoiled, and soon he would finally get it. In the meantime, no one stopped admiring the protagon. They announced training of recruits for the harvesting of medicinal plants. She asked her chickens if they did not want to collect medicinal herbs, to which they immediately answered that they would be happy to taste. I called them gentle pink kids just came into the world. He fiercely put all the intricacies of adventure crafts, not giving a moment of rest. Every blood forcibly inserted them black algae, and that's how their exciting journey began. A few minutes later, when the girl noted that even experienced collectors may have an error, and they would accidentally load an inappropriate sample to the basket, the RO has already completed the collection. He added to the contents of the basket rare, high-quality medicinal herbs that did not grow in these places. Most likely, he took advantage of his abilities, but the girl refused to recognize it, because they were just caught. Everything was arranged to the smallest details, which could not be impressed by Rhoda. His ward noted that the training took place in the mountains, and she called him a real savage. She noted that she completely completed the full amount of work assigned to her. She sincerely respects the protagonist, calling him incredible for collecting all the plants on his own. The task was to be fulfilled earlier. The boys were expecting to return home, but Lodnit announced that they would go to explore the surroundings instead. Part of this dimension that is not allowed to step. During their training period, the boys decided to join one expedition with Lodnite plan. After all, on the way to become real adventurers, they had to learn every experience. It was noted that the narrator began to tremble, and a light fog slowly squeezed around. Undoubtedly something extraordinary awaits us ahead. The knight continued, warning that if they are accidentally getting lost, she would have to say goodbye to life forever. The Guild of the Sectors of the Kingdom of Century has declared some terrain as strictly forbidden, where you should never step. This place is known as the Area of Evil Spirits. And what is the name of the one who patiently waits for the book? Gorgi also construct a protective barrier and defend the whole force. Half of this territory is already mastered by evil spirits. As Landite warned, who carefully penetrates here, he will find himself in a deadly pursuit. The adventure has begun an invasion of the forbidden area, where you should never step. They doubted whether they were really outside the protective barrier. From his point of view, the hero as he could not have a friend who is deprived of the necessary skills. It was a real shame. In addition, this guy knows our squirrel, states that now is the perfect moment to introduce them to it. Applies sound reinforcement. Thanks to this ability, even the barely audible whispers become clarity, and if the incorporeal spirit does not produce sounds, something is always reverse. To the surprise of the boys, this ability is passive. The girl is wondering why such an extraordinary woman has non-violent magic. Lundit is dissatisfied with such statements about itself. She has repeatedly used her magic, saving herself from the inevitable death. Adventures taught her how to skillfully avoid danger. He explained that this is why she became the head of the guild. Suddenly the girl heard something. Fear swept all, and the master immediately turned to him. Representative of the most solid caste. According to information, no physical strength does not influence it. He strongly rushed into the attack, and the girls, not knowing about his incredible power, felt anxiety for him. Rodigan has informed Laudit that he had entrusted her care over the dwarf throughout the mission. Get closer to. He dusted, and it was at that moment that a mighty blow came. He silently, almost motionless, looked at the ruins of the shopping center. The Launda, hearing his call, immediately plunged into panic. As he assumed, the spirits literally sucked the vitality from man. He effortlessly destroyed his enemy, giving his freedom to his incredible abilities. No one took into account that the usual laws of physics no longer affect him. Lundit believes that he still has some talent, though most likely it is only a technical feature. Most importantly, the real situation is much more dangerous than it seemed. He, confident in his own power, decided to act despite the fact that the girl opposed this step. The man constantly controls evil spirits without reducing the pace. Overcoming this measurement should be delayed for 3 days, and apparently nothing will be left behind. The girls insist on retreat. Venturus noticed a castle wrapped in thick fog. None of them could believe how that could happen. Ruvia was angry because of the found place and immediately headed for Venturus, because that's how the guildmaster acted. She did not want to say goodbye to the boy, because she always wanted to be near him. The girl trembled with fear, because unexpectedly on their way appeared another enemy, the monsters, who were called Lysons. When they came to the inside of the castle, they rose to the highest floor, known as the throne. A familiar girl explained to the boys that she was hardly visited. However, this is not surprising, because she lived in an extremely dangerous place. She asked the girl if she is the one who controls the evil spirits that have filled the plane. Gnome adds that the girl is extremely poor. She was settled in the room next to these spirits. As in the situation with Legion, she considered such placement impolite and carelessly thoughtful. It appeared that it was one of the highest creatures that prevail in this world, one of the 18 devil lists. Rui suggested that she move away from all this, because she decided to apply her abilities at her own will, perhaps through interaction with our protein, stunned by this condition. And when he was asked if the local spirits really came about because she said she had no idea why these creatures were near her. The girl believes that they reached for her buttocks somewhere. It creates inconvenience for the entire neighborhood, so it would be the best option if the devil has settled somewhere else, away from the city. Gnome is supported by the boy's opinion, because, as a creature of higher power, she, in his opinion, is able to cope with such a task. However, the girl replies that it is because this place has gained her heart, she decided to settle here. Because people do the same. However, they do not live as long as she, and do not have such force. If she is really wise, will she be able to quench her divine arrogance and prefer people? Such were her words. It was a pride. The devil proclaimed that a rule that is unbreakable since ancient times determines weak should be obeyed. Give up, instantly fall to the bottom and turn for the supreme mercy. Otherwise, a ruthless death is waiting. This is what should be according to the devil's order. The proteinist makes an unexpected offer for someone. He states that if his force exceeds her, he will be obliged to obey. After angry, he states that he is not aware of the seriousness of the situation he got into. She believes that such arrogance deserves his punishment, a slow death that will allow him to feel all the torment of despair. She sought to challenge the main boss of evil spirits. According to Lawn Diet, this much exceeded all previous trials, as her intuition of an experienced traveler, with more than 10 years of experience, immediately warned about the seriousness of the situation. Support was missing. The list drew attention to the girls who watched carefully. Encourages them not to worry because she promised to spare and return them to the usual place. It is not possible to understand why she was killed. On the return, she insists that they spread throughout the area about the tragic death of this boy, because Abinion wants them to become a kind of commemoration of warriors. The character had no doubt that she would not leave anyone alive, and he really liked it. He was sure that she was exactly what it should be. It has so much evidence that each new testifies to the presence of even more. She chooses to stay alive, and this decision feels warmth and kindness. The villain even begins to feel some sympathy for. She became embarrassed, hearing his words. She was immediately engulfed by burning anger because she was sure that the guy was just flattering. He assured that he would not deprive her life until the operation is completed in its entirety. He has never told her nothing before. Shortly before the death of the boy, she decided to give a lecture on the arrangement of the world. It was extremely important for her to listen carefully to her words. She began her story with the words, "There are 3 types of higher creatures on Earth." In fact, she herself belonged to the highest caste, spirits, a level that can be compared with the concept of a dead man. Such creatures were extremely rare. There were only 18 in the world, which caused surprise. He noted that a person is able to reveal a maximum of 90% of his potential. Based on this, she asked how they cope with this business. Even more exacerbating their despair, it boldly challenges them. Remove the leaves one by one. The highest levels of this being, having reached 59,845, panic engulfed the crowd because the number exceeded 10,000. They were convinced that no person was able to cope with such a threat and that their cities were approaching. Albinets, in turn, expected this reaction. Evelis addressed the protagonist with the question, "Do you realize the power of your dwarf dragons?" She swung. Rua struck her that caused a powerful explosion. Hevelis was finally seized by a powerful wave of his own vital energy. Her demonic body began to turn into fog of evaporation. After even more, the guy decided that she was in no way different from demonic forces, and that as soon as her own life energy would hit her, she could be neutralized. Look at what level the guy's reached, and for me, the Ryojist confessed to her that he had reached 8,347,917 levels, which instantly struck her. And just that he is aware, and she began to obey him crazy. She confesses that she was unreasonable and did not realize at all what the mess got into, and the Devilist desperately asks her husband to at least keep her. He was pleasantly amazed that she was genuinely trusted by him. She called him her majesty and argued that his power penetrates it to the very essence. However, with some reluctance, she apologizes to him for stirring her peace. At the same time, she thinks whether our hero is familiar with a giant snake or some other natural phenomenon. He confessed that he was familiar with the dragon-shaped snake. Deimos began to claim that they lightly violate the laws of the universe and simply depart from the consequences of their actions. However, the guy did not understand the essence of her words. Recently reported that there are 3 types of higher creatures on Earth. However, outside our world, in unattainable space, the so-called 8 dragon snakes, which have 4 dimensions and protect 2 poles, live. Every few hundred years they suddenly appear, lifting such a powerful wave of change that the world instantly turns upside down. The protagonist is convinced that he revealed the essence of her words. It is said that this guy was chosen by the dragon Smai. Abinion modestly apologizes for his rudeness and promises to fulfill any request. He orders her to die. She begins to beat herself near this, but the man quickly assures that everything was just a joke. So settled peace on the plain, and during his return the guy suffered a real squall of questions. Among them was the question of his level. It was obvious that the designation 17 did not meet his true opportunities. The Swordmaster explained that the map could not reflect the real force of its level, because it was capable of showing only lower values. She confessed that she saw something that made her think, but the adoption of this experience required faith. She noted that she always considered our protagonist extremely impressive. It remains as follows, because for people with a powerful personality, like them, skills are not crucial. But that guy always finds himself in a disadvantage. He was constantly concerned about the disappointment and the inferiority complex inherent in a person who did not have the necessary skill. For 5 years, he was tormented by constant intolerance caused by the fact that he had to use the toilet in the midst of wildlife. Now the hero considers himself ordinary, because in his opinion, although he has become stronger, his capabilities still have certain limits. The main character is increasingly turning to those who, like Noam, have faced such problems. He asks her to support him in a difficult moment. The rules of events are so restrained that even representatives of the royal family cannot act at will. If Ryu is able not only to follow these rules, but also to reach the highest rank S, or at least prestigious rank A, it will clearly testify to the power of its capabilities. A cheerful girl confidently states that she will be happy to help. Behind their back, you can hear someone notes, "This guy has an incredible personality." The guy thought why she was here because he ordered her to go. She said she was already hiding the castle. Returning, the adventure master noted that he himself disappeared too. Gadel stated that the castle actually has a mediating appearance because it was created by it. Finally, that man warned her so that she no longer worry. Abinion slowly went back, trying to speak a few words, that she intended to always be near Her Majesty. The girls' faces were reflected in stunning shock and embarrassment. I warned that evil spirits would come to them. However, Abinion assured that, closing the faucet, all the troubles would disappear. Although no one understood what the tap is about, she insisted on what he needed to find. Thanks to the individual setting of her miyaza, it can fly freely, changing its appearance from bright white to almost transparent. All together began to return home, crowded with the spirit of victory. The boys are convinced that the roots of their troubles lies in an excessive chat. At this point, there was an unexpected turn of events confirmed by our protagant. He remembered that there was a holy oath between the master and the servant, which made it possible to give something. However, the guy did not understand what she meant. He decided to supplement the kiss with the use of his tongue that the girl really liked. But how could he reach it? Finishing a moment of passion, Babnian said that now their souls are intertwined, and they are able to share part of each other's feelings. Pay attention to, the past has been closely linked to the ability to recognize other people. The guy would not be able to observe the qualities of those who exceed him by force, but there are no such ones. And that's really great. Show him what our hero sees when he looks at it. Is shocked because it really notice all the parameters. Her humble help. It is impossible to achieve this only by the power of the fists, because he just warned those girls. Without hesitation and pity, she shared this information. She asked him the question, "Do you really not be able to accept it from who brings it?" He looked at the girl, and in his thoughts the idea flashed. Can a demonic spirit have such an attractive beauty? In the same words, she added that she had not heard the word beautiful from her husband for a long time. Yes, their unique story began from the first day of their adventures. Returning to the city in a full triumph, they collided with an ugly man, next to whom he was struck by the protagonist. The adventure master instantly recognized him as a degriver. This is what he was called. He was surprised that the guy had absolutely neither a frying pan nor weapons. Ruya became careful about its characteristics, which were displayed on the screen. He was amazed at his skill, especially surprised by the fact that he could determine the degree of sympathy or dislike for titanium, information not marked on the map. He asked impatiently, "Who is this guy?" He wanted to convey to him that his commitment to his younger brother Bari would not be without a trace. He would have to be answered. Brothers from the highest fraction soon organize phantom revenge. He sends his subtle brother in one powerful blow to the clouds instantly. At first, he sharply points his finger to the hero, condemning him as a person who leads life devoid of true skills. At the same moment, Dogwitz is preparing to break his arms and legs. He then returns to Lentanda, stating that she will now become his mistress and a satellite, because her unbearable presence has long been the cause of his dissatisfaction. He saw in it a great potential for his own, though two candid ones, designed. They returned to the city in the triumph. Suddenly, his body began to change, as if pierced by an elusive, powerful energy. The interviewee, who intervened, appealed to the protagonist to allow punishment on the perpetrators. But he insists that this is his personal business. Before the start of Dejizo's torment, he was concerned exclusively by the devil's body. Such thoughts were far from the best recent considerations before the inevitable suffering. They cleared the Guild of Adventure Seekers from riots, finally closing the business. The next day, the event got a new turn. The action went to the guild. Lundit began her speech, opening her polite apology. She wants them to take a course dedicated to dungeons. First of all, Lundit wants to thank them sincerely for clearing the plains for harvesting herbs and coping with a clutter after the smart of his brothers. Call of the second rank. It is currently first, but thanks to outstanding skills, It will soon break through the following ranks. The girl realizes that everything is fine because the main character made a much greater contribution than she. Avignon is convinced that she is extraordinary and really original. Wildmaster claims that they cross the established limits because they rapidly rise in rank, and it actively promotes their promotion. The boys are not aware of the essence of the situation. But the devil warned a much more serious threat than that seems insignificant. They began to talk about their strength. It is written that these forces will not release them just like that. They seek either to pick up guys or crush them. Guild is no longer able to protect its ranks afterwards. Royal Palace, Magic Academy, and other institutions. This is a list of those who want to use them, and it can be continuing infinitely. Not wanting to be used, they are forced to demonstrate their character. The destruction, looking at his hands, realizes that even without special skills, he is able to start a real war, if you make enough effort. His power is not criminal in itself, but it cannot be applied solely for personal gain. He is able to use it to bring... He suddenly realized something. He must perform as many quests as possible to increase his team rating. In case of need, the Adventure Master has already prepared a letter of recommendation on his behalf. The screen shows the details of the task. 3 minutes, they reached the majestic gates of the dungeon in the kingdom of Kingillian. The boys were pleasantly impressed with its incredible scale. The guide in the name of the chest of drawers and the number go to the pursuit of the proto-Guyanist. The guy with level 17 and without special skills dares to penetrate the dungeon. He assures that he has a letter of recommendation, and the element of Benin is listening to the conversation, because they are behind the walls. He barely believed to his own eyes. His sister confidently reported that both had great force, and everything is great. He was aware that the girl, with only the 3rd level in the dungeon, was easily amenable to fear. The guy advised her to stay nearby. It turned out that everything was not right. Gnome just thought about the material that concerns you. The guy opened it sharply, warning to stop filtration, because it was not an attraction for couples or friends of friends. I decided to ask whether people with powerful skills are really more in dungeons. Kama replied that you are. It is unfair, but regardless of every effort, the strong skill decides everything. People who have developed skills enjoy a much richer life, because they are much easier for them. He is convinced that she is right, because many of those who are not lucky inevitably share her opinion. To achieve the first goal, namely the root of Miss Kane, he noted that everything looked strange. The object grew only a little further. The girl sought to approach closer, but the guy immediately tried to stop her, warning that it could be a trap. This body is a monster who, as soon as the living creature dare to enter his possessions, instantly braces the victim and ruthlessly sucks all blood from it. The most effective technique can be the ability that penetrates through the earth, causing destructive blows. We dive everything around into a fire flame. Spare the root, Ruya asked. Is that exactly what they are looking for? He was embarrassed. While in such a threat, he had to try to escape. However, in response, he heard, "That's why I pulled him out immediately. You will not be able to, miss. This root is much larger than you. The Mist Dragon will not be able to go through this path. The probability of success is less than 1%. No one asks her if she has at least any information about it. The girl began an assessment of the subject, because it was one of the features of the ability of Alchemical Lord, which allowed to improve the quality of the found things. A similar situation happened in the course of a training task. Their second target was Rog Kiki. It was a huge creature that resembled a horn. It cut steel armor, as if it were a regular piece of metal. Secondly, Rio wins. This is something incredible. The accompanying one has never seen anything like this. A guy overflowing curiosity asks him, "What is it?" According to the girl, this material is the best not only for the manufacture of armor, but also a wonderful alchemical ingredient. The guy was incredibly bright and energetic. He was pleasantly surprised that he was again able to obtain a rare trophy. Let the owner of the Alps live. Rua addresses the girl with the question, "Is it difficult for you to wear Kiki money?" The engine conductor started a story about the last ingredient, warning them not to delve too much. Red sand still remained, much more dangerous than the ordinary, which they are used to. She asks her to be led, but he cannot understand why his skill has disappeared suddenly, and tries to stop the abduction. Subsequently, it turns out that Rhea has the necessary abilities. Sand is a delicate, high-quality mineral used to create medicines. However, when it comes into contact with the air, it immediately breaks down into numerous mercury compounds. For self-defense, this mineral is attacked by any living creature that is approaching, and so it was called Mercury Murderer. The place where it is found. Rua asks, if the substance is liquid, will we be able to bring it to? Before their eyes, a ghoul, enveloped in a huge pile of red sand, appeared. He wondered how to defeat this creature. However, the conductor did not know what to do. The creature was invulnerable to physical blows, and its poisonous power complicated the task. Perhaps there is some other way to overcome it? Despite all the power of the poison, it will not harm the protagonist. Ruya confidently declares Noam that he will take this task. Like the fish Chuka, it moved rapidly in the direction of the substance in question. Shocked by events, she believes that the guy intends. Only a few minutes, Mercury stopped sharply. He rose smoothly from the bottom of the lake. He cannot understand how the guy managed to survive in Rua sailed in Mercury, because no one created an antidote for poison, which was constantly accumulating in the chest. The brownist tried to refuse, claiming that everything was fine with him, but the girl insisted on help. The guy was not aware that he was wrong with him. Someone warned them. You can't just stand it, you need to act. A binion. She began to explain that without decisive action, the body would melt and disappear forever. The devil asked her to hand over it to another. In fact, her body is completely isolated from the outside world. It is devoid of even basic elements such as air and oxygen. He was already going to return, discussing everything that had happened. The conductor of the dungeon realized that she underestimated this guy. Although he had no supernatural abilities, his mind was extremely acute. He was convinced that he would receive a great joy for the acquisition of 3 rare materials, though he may have met a truly wonderful person later. The leader of the guild was incomparably outraged by how instantly the task was completed. He decided to introduce them to the head of the craft guild, a person known as the Saint. He does not realize what a handicraft guild is, so he turns to Lundit for clarification. He was surprised because they managed to accomplish an extremely difficult task. Senja realizes that even big-rank adventures will take years to gather every. The task has not yet been completed, so the guy was offered to sit. The protagonist thought that the artist and representative could miss the attention. There was something that could be created from these materials. They discussed 3 main components: anesthetic, tonic, and red. It is an extremely powerful version of ordinary potion that can even restore lost limbs and provide other incredible opportunities. Palace. Even the most talented doctors and outstanding alchemists will not be able to perform such an incredibly absurd problem. That the fight against demons in the northeast is far from completing. The potion could be created by the master of alchemy. But in his game there is no such specialist. In the kingdom there was a man whose price exceeded the weight of gold. That is why when someone receives such a rank during a blessing ceremony, special attention is paid to him. He understands that the task will have to be cancelled and regrets, because of the huge amount of money they will lose. Now I insist that he will wait. He asks her, "Who are you, and what are you carrying with you?" The girl frankly confesses that she has the talent of a female alchemist, how to create them, and how he has to trust him. Yuvi asks Lundit why, despite the presence of such a man in the guild, she still has not noticed it. The girl replies that he can always rely on her. A week later, she finally completed her job. Instead of the ordered canned material, she created 300 bottles of exposure, which caused surprise to the adventurers. The next day, Senjui suggested that the girl join the artisan community. He tells her that this place is just not for you. It is an extremely honorable profession, especially when it wears the title of Lord Alchemistry. He promises her favorable conditions and incredible wealth. Without listening to the words of a man, our gnome resolutely abandons the proposed. If any order appears, she is immediately ready to execute it. He notices that the girl gained new confidence. And if this quest contributed to its adulthood, it was not at all. He is not going to give up. In addition, he has another requirement. It is unsettled that the number of potions was much higher than the requirements set by the royal palace. Great work. It undoubtedly deserves the highest praise. As it turned out, the king personally meets them in the royal palace. They went to meet with the king. He was called Leonard Friedrich, and it was he who sent all 13 to Killian Ellerix. He assured that their work deserves the highest praise, and the created potions will certainly save the country. Realizing how difficult this task was, Leonardo doubted that someone would be able to accomplish it. For such young adventurers, it was a real victory, and the king dreamed of rewarding them with a worthy honors. He trembles, but assures everyone who made every effort. Rugg is thinking about how the king, aware of the situation, still decided to instruct this task, because it was the circumstances that demanded such a step. The most important thing is that it will give them a green spirit. He points to our protagonist. Ruya did not expect such a sharp turn of events in battle. Naruto asks, "Is this true?" However, there is only silence instead of answer. The Ryojist begins to share the history of their meeting, emphasizing that he is usually perceived as a kind of guard. The conversation took some time. Now King knew the whole story of slaves and bravely rescued girls, and was convinced that he had collected all rare materials on his own. The king asks the question, "What unique skill does our hero have?" He calmly states that he has no such unique skill. Thank you very much for watching. Ardo angrily stated that in this world there will be those who consciously hide their talents to avoid harm. But now he is facing the king, and he must attract all the human resources of the kingdom. To hide his skill from the monarch, a true sin, continued the man. He suggested, maybe it is worth showing him a guild card. Another agreed. Incredibly, he cannot believe his eyes, because it is the first time he met someone without. At some point, their conversation is unexpectedly interrupted by someone. The king minister, named Husad Kamil, argued that the interlocutor no doubt exceeds his achievements, because it would not be possible to achieve it without proper skills. He was convinced that this behavior was aimed at gaining the king's trust. He does not have the necessary abilities and is in vain, so the king should pay better attention to the girl who, along with the alchemist, rotate runs, no one else is going. They began to assure the girl that they did everything exclusively for her. After all, such a chosen girl should not be next to a talentless junk. A junk like him is worthless, one of them said coldly. She began to declare loudly that Rui-san was her salvation, and categorically refused to listen to any abusive words in her address. He appeared and stated that it was absolutely known. Appearing in enormous sizes, the devil ordered immediately to start to proclaim the commendable stanzas to her owner. Otherwise, they were threatened by the inevitable trouble. At first, she sought not only to destroy her bishop, but also to collapse the whole kingdom, but now decided to limit only this way. The king and his minister were scared by this pale woman. Abinioni asks her compressed teeth permission to fulfill her plan, but the new moon is busy. The minister orders the guards to start an attack on the gun, and he says that they are not tuned to fight. However, Abinion engulfed true euphoria. She was bullied, calling servants small fish, and claimed that even hundreds of thousands of such could not be equal to her. And that's how it was. He asked the guy asking the operation. He says he met her, but he was immediately interrupted by Abinion, stating that she had just fallen in love. Havilas reports that she is the owner of all evil spirits that inhabit the earth. She is called corrupted, and not surprisingly, she is a maid of our bruising. Everyone was surprised near him. He was able to curb his restless desire to walk. If this is true, its achievements become even more important. However, the minister insists, declaring it. Most women only try to deceive him. One of them is now near the Kahute, next to the scoundrel, which is completely devoid of talents. According to Hasaid, the king must carefully weigh whether he is a person who is able to withstand such a monster. Call Minister Bald Minister, he asked, is your thinking completely empty? He is unexpectedly surprised by her straightforwardness. However, she could see all the power of Her Majesty. He was trained in the largest dragon, so his level exceeded 8 million. The Destroyo felt awkward and disappointment because she did not open everything at once. It is full of faith and admiration, thinking about it. The minister also thinks that these are just children's fantasies. Striving the minister on the forehead, he strongly stated that he was a real fool who thinks only within the limited human knowledge, and that he cannot be respected at all. In addition, the guy got his strength from a huge dragon, whose level of power reaches 10 minutes. Alice rejoices that she has enlightened these people. The guy praised her, but she hopes that he will also join the case. She initiated a kind of lesson. According to her, if his level is really so high, Vlad becomes even more attractive to him. Leda comes from a noble family who serves his country, and he will soon reach the title of general. Asks if Ruya wants to challenge him in a duel. The representative of the Centrian kingdom is indignant at the order to fight with the adventurer. Ruya also decides to carefully familiarize himself with the characteristics of her opponent. The screen shows the statistics of the warrior. He was surprised that the guy, who was just over 20 years old, managed to reach the level 31. Even more impressed was what it was. Leda emphasizes that she does not use her fighting skills because it is extremely dangerous. He calls her skill, stating that I am sure that his skills are at the highest level. The guy replies to her that he has no such skill. She considers his words a solid nonsense, because it is quite obvious to her that he is not stupid. It is reported that the guy had the right opinion. His abilities grow together with the number of subordinates. She is currently leading about 100 people, and even when they are not in battle, their contribution remains invaluable. Thanks to the spoken words, her attack acquires incredible strength. It increases 20 times. And this is infinitely important. According to Nothing, he now has to understand that to participate in ordinary sparring with her is a real nonsense, because she is sure that he will be able to break him in one powerful blow. The response assures that everything is fine, and it can use her things freely. He seeks to see the manifestation of his strength, and if she does not hit him with all his return, he will be disappointed. Let's assume that his words are aimed at offending him. He accepts his proposal and says to the guy, "Try not to do it." A powerful attempt was in the air like a battle, and it struck its most powerful blow. You only used a powerful stroke of the Stopter sword just here. The whole audience exploded with applause and surprised exclamations, because according to their considerations, without a powerful defense skill, it was impossible. They could not grasp how that could happen at all. And S explains that everything he did is just moved his body. He cannot understand why the accompanying person was at the center of attack, and he was such a reporter that even the strongest blow could not overthrow it to the ground. She is in surprise that she is not a girl, but the protagonist repeatedly denies that she could have been a male representative, and he magnifies, calling his lord the most powerful. After all, the king has already made his final decision, and he asks whether Rua is ready to accept the call and make the impossible. He calls for him to go with Leleses to the northeast and join. Demons are enemies, and the kingdom is vital to his power to save humanity. Only by uniting will humanity be able to withstand enemies. Ruya will rush into a fierce duel with demons. Although he does not have specific skills, he is not inferior to others in certain aspects. A few hours later, they arrived in the front line in the northeastern part of Anicaps. This year's bloodshed was absolute and comprehensive. He noted that 6,000 men were stationed on the forefront and another 1,000 protection of defense borders. But the course of events in the battle was clearly not beneficial. It was assumed that it should be delivered. The senior commander, along with his assistant, appears on the stage. It turns out that all potions have already been used. The attack sharply exacerbated, and the forces of the warrior were insufficient, which was why all the potions had to be used. For this reason, the senior commander apologized. He sees that the situation is still in a terribly pathetic state. The night will come that can stop further bloodshed. I am personally going to cut off the hand of this demon. But Abinion assured that the creature would grow it back. It orders everyone to break, because it begins its influence on the world. All of its devoteders are ordered to provide the devils with the necessary materials so that it can begin the creation of new expositions. The space is overflowing with a variety of tools that Gnome received from others. He addresses the girl to the question, will she really be able to do it? She has a skill inherent in a true alchemist. 4 years spent on the forefront became a real shock for anyone who learned about it. Everyone began to thank her. The fighters immediately distributed potions among those who were injured. In the eyes of the world, Shang turned into a true symbol of hope and glow. He claims that Launda has already mentioned it. He burns with a decisive desire to help everyone. The protagonist addresses the owner of the spirits with the key question. It is able to absorb energy. Is there a method that will allow to achieve the opposite effect? Suddenly above the battlefield, the gusty haze rose. Did we feel real relief? Was it really he? It releases the vitality of the protagonist, which, of course, should enhance his regeneration. The devil assures the guy that hugs with her are absolutely indispensable. But at heart, she seeks completely different. The first task is to heal everyone, as it will reduce the harm caused. In just 1 hour, more than 1,000 people were healed. The incredible accomplishment that promises a real revolution. As soon as these impressive rumors begin to fly among people, her helmet and the brothers doubted whether it was really worth it. They were convinced that he had never been removed because in their opinion he did not look decent. But the night was incredible. The strategists immediately discussed the situation and concluded that the Demovian retreat was a cunning draw, which was just preparing for an inevitable attack. Issued an order received from. Opening the letter, she realized that she was now heading the army as commander-in-chief. May the memories be your support. Remember the unique skills that it possesses. With each new subordinate, its capacity increases by 20%. However, she does not have significant power herself. In the war, a single principle was set. All 7,000 soldiers had to become their subordinates. The warrior is concerned that her body may not withstand the trials. With the participation of 7,000 soldiers, her strength will increase 14 times. It is likely that her body will not withstand the moment when she strikes, but she is absolutely ready. The fact is that she is a knight, and knighthood is completely dedicated to the protection of the kingdom. If you can neutralize the danger that hangs over the state, will not hesitate to sacrifice everyone to destroy it. The final decision remains in the hands of Lesleza, and it can only resort to it in critical circumstances. In addition, Rua and Noam have already saved an incredible number of people. So she consciously seeks to put herself in danger, said Arua. The battle begins. Immediately look for shelter to avoid hitting the skills of Leslins. You will only have one chance. Having reached the critical moment, they are sharply stopped by our hero, who is at the same time occupied by his own business. Of course, they are not concerned about their approaches, but will it allow him to become a participant? It was this question that was tormented by Ruiz. It is said that these sleds, saving so many lives, have become a true symbol of hope. Despite all the difficulties, the hero decided to go to the battlefield. The destruction, taking the ice with him, went to the battlefield. The girl who stayed behind, but Leslanza doubted that it would happen. She could use her skills, and he drew all their strength, so formed the image of a true protagonist. He wondered what would happen if it turned out to be too unbearable for the protagonist. He is convinced that giving his life for the sake of salvation of the beautiful is a noble idea. Rug advised not to pay attention to it, and she obediently accepted his advice. The fact is that the guy just wanted to support her, and he was not the only one. Her sword radiates the determination of 7,000 girls. Leslin gave them their lives without trusting both him and her. Only in this way will they be able to make the girl truly strong. He is convinced that in this battle they will not be lost, and her skill will give them a significant advantage. King Leonardo demanded from him. The mystery that the young man and the king shared had to remain their common weapon. But he unexpectedly exploded. She was stunned by what she had, a moment when the demons began their actions. The screen showed the number of monsters who sought to destroy everyone without exception. Aben reporters recorded that the number of demons reached about 30,000. Flying on his wings, they laughed and stated, "While people die like flies, he gathers an unprecedented army." The demon, in turn, requires to show how it will happen. Here's the true look of demons. That's what they really come. The hero first encounters them. After suffering, why did he meet with such an annoying creature? Among the demons I know by name. He asked if the guy was sure of his words, and he claims that this is a wise choice from her mother. The plan is to eliminate it immediately, and then everything will understand the rest. As noted, they are given only one opportunity. Despite her fears for safety, she is confidently tuned to success. In the end, there is Raya near her, which has 8 million. Shocked and most likely to feel. The consequences of this event continue to demonstrate their essence. Such an incredible force that seemed like an atomic explosion occurred. The military surprised it, but they were already waiting for such a level from their unusual brothers. Make sure that Leslin survived, shocked by such a rebound, but it was possible to capture the majority of their army. I think it will not have the strength for the next attack. He calls Gnome, and she immediately rushes to him. He brought the potion, and the girl immediately began to drink it. Immediately healing, she finally dared to test her potion. Gnome assured that she has many more. He notes that it is time to focus on preparing for the second speech. Even when the bones of the girls are completely restored and the wounds will heal, every use of this ability will always bring it pain. At least it testifies to one thing. Without paying attention to her, the guy ordered to rise and take a position to speak. A second explosion came from that place. Having received the second portion of the potion X, they again prepared to strike, marked by a third attempt. Next round, take potions and prepare for a new attack. Again, events unfold by a familiar cycle. It is already forced to drink potions using food as a bait. It is already vomiting from a potion that is forced to take delicious food under the bait. She claims that he can destroy these 30,000 demons in one fell, and calls for the meaning of unnecessary effort. You yourself said that it was only a human battle, not something else. The army of the kingdom, which was to unite the forces and repel a demonic threat, was able to do so through her skill. The surviving demons were surprised at what kind of extraordinary skill these pathetic people have. Their abilities really annoyed the demons. He asked him the question, "Why don't you rush home?" However, the demon ignored this question, noting that this guy was not a good object. He is going to really have fun, because for you, there is nothing more enjoyable than killing people. He states that he will become the opponent of our hero, to which Rua assures that he will be able to entertain him until the full moon. What the readers have been waiting for so long will happen, and the demon is sure that it will easily cope with this event. The protagonist firmly states that Benian's death will leave an unfilled wasteland that will be difficult to forget. The demon is convinced that it is much easier to resist him than 30,000 demons, because he considers them extremely underdeveloped. Meanwhile, the monster feels a real pleasure in the thought of their destruction. These, in his opinion, insignificant creatures must suffer incomparable torments during death. The true power of the title demons is revealed. It turns out that he not only owned the exceptional level of force, but also acquired many unique skills. Young was extremely talkative, but Rue did not pay attention to him at all. The attack on the main character will begin soon. I activate the ability to create acid fog. The indentation under the cover of acid fog was successfully carried out. Is it? The real power of demons lies in the variety of their abilities. The protagonist cannot see anything because of a thick fog. A clear testimony of a tremendous difference in the power between people and demons, Ben Young said. He asked in surprise why this man refuses to give up. If the fog remains, soldiers can be in danger, and then you have to do something. The man winked to someone, and she understood the intention of her master and immediately began to fulfill his plan. Explosion! The shot hit the demon! He cannot understand that it was a white haze, because his usual acid haze was suddenly blocked. He simply cannot believe this amazing change. He argues that his forces far exceed the power of the demonic spirit, but Abinion categorically refutes this statement. He accuses him of demonic without watching a close look, and he does not realize that the devil forgets. Even powerful demons exceed the abilities of higher-rank perfumes. He cannot understand why she chose an alliance with people. His words were numerous, but she did not refute any of them. She gives it the impression that she only obeys someone who is stronger than her. He could not believe that a person could be stronger than the demonic spirit, but soon he became convinced of it. The main character is not in the frame. He is a little surprised when he suddenly begins to perceive the world with the eyes of the devil. Aben approaches the master, sniffing him, and asks whether he probably wanted her to make sure all the soldiers, but she had already done it, and gently strokes the devil on her head, sincerely thanking her for fulfilling his request. This feeling was incredible to him. He is convinced that this is not possible, because the acidic haze is 500 times more powerful than ordinary acid. Surviving in such an environment is a real challenge, and to settle at home even more hopelessly. He asks the guy if he is a man. The Russian confirms, "Yes, I'm just a regular man." The character is not prone to murder, but the demon who despises people sees nothing wrong with their destruction, so it feels some relief. Only a moment later did that guy find himself right before Benione. He warns that the guy will have to deprive him of his life. One single blow was enough for half to fly out of his head. The thirst for getting rid of this man has not disappeared, even though his mind decreased. He included intense regeneration, and the demon is convinced that the radishes will do nothing. The proto-Hanist begins to collapse a flurry of blows. He felt unbearable pain, not having time to restore strength, and at this pace the guy would certainly destroy him. Except for his death, which occurs in the same way as ordinary people destroyed by his hands. The absolute silence prevailed, and the moon glowed brightly in the sky. He praises his master tirelessly. Indeed, these were wonderful times. Everything that happens is reduced to the devil's case. Soldiers also point out that the sky has been blossomed again, and everyone is immediately aware of what happened. The dream draws the attention of his father. Look there. It is in that direction that our characters concentrated their views. Everyone is endlessly glad, because their mistress finally returned, and the celebration raises the mood of everyone. It turns into protein. She states that she is already able to stand on his feet on her own, and asks him to release, because it is ashamed. She says that if she was carried by our hero, she would feel incredible happiness. And Abinion adds that she would be in the seventh heaven with joy. A few hours later they find themselves on the street of the Tsar Kent Killian. It believes that the rigid response of the locals is excessive. So, everything looks silly, because the demonic army was overcome with barely noticeable difficulties. It is clear that residents of the city will be overwhelmed by joy, because they perceive it as a real victory. He had something special. He wants to hear all the details directly from the participants of the battle, so he orders them to start a story. Ardo perceived every word carefully, admiring even the smallest details. She states that she was able to survive thanks and the main merit in overcoming demons belongs to Russia, and she dreams that he is presented with the highest honors for his achievement. He looked at his new friend and, to his astonishment, he was pleased with pleasure. The victory was impossible without the participation of every subject of the king. He is intended to bring them all to the aristocracy, and Ardo is firmly convinced of his intentions. The assistant of the king, as always, was dissatisfied. In his opinion, there was never a trace that the common people suddenly moved to the ranks of a new aristocracy, not to mention those who can be called true waste. It is angry and no longer stands it. For such common people, gratitude will be sufficient. In fact, it will even be enough with the stock, because the minister is not going to retreat. He tells him that these are different in their volume. He rises and states that the true task of the king is to manage the state and support his subjects. It was Rua who saved the situation this time, proving that he performs the duties of the ruler, and the title of nobleman is only the smallest, symbolic reward for his service. And this scene almost causes tears in the eyes. She is asking whether Russia is really ready to accept the status of the aristocrat and continue its service. And Leslads will almost turn to pleading so that he can finally confess. The minister orders him to pick up what he owes. He just learned that an important guest had arrived at the castle, so he must first show him proper respect, and only then make his decision. Whose side became the minister? He asks Leslets who he is, and she is surprised that he is not aware of it. Is a person chosen by someone? The church carefully defines people's abilities by selecting the strongest for service. They are the chosen elite, which includes the best warriors. The heroes commit their vocation. According to the protagonist, they were only the next foot, because the Lound has already reminded him of it. On the face of Lesled, all the hatred she felt for them was clearly visible, but the reasons for this have not yet been identified. Suddenly bursting into the room, the hero shouted, turning to, about the arrival that brought the rescue to the king. A desperate hero, a true embodiment of courage. Thank you very much for your view. When he was asked what exactly to save the kingdom, he replied, does it not suffer from continuous demons of demons? He remembers someone who always waved his hands vigorously and has unbearably issued his thoughts. But the name of that person completely dissolved in memory. At this point, he was awake of the figure of Libra, a person who once had an incredible skill, but later abandoned him. He so tirelessly praises himself that even the king does not have time to insert the word. According to him, each ballot will reflect his victory. During the reward, he wants to get a wonderful prince. He looked carefully at Leledeza and immediately realized that something was wrong. He began to turn to Libra, but could not understand why he allowed himself to talk to him by his name. The Ryogas stated that he was his former friend. Its internal components are now predominant over it. What will their reunion bring? When he was asked if he was familiar with this steam, he replied that they were once close friends. Asks what this guy is busy here and why, given his choice, did not throw him directly into the trash. In the look of Libra, a powerful disdain was flashed. Ruya noted that he was better. The arrogant guy, indifferent to the main character, returns to the king and asks whether it is time to finally do urgent affairs. Eduardo is not aware of what work is. It is reported that their kingdom was attacking the army of demons, and the church has already sent brave warriors to him. Remember, he asked for help from priests and curios who have the strongest abilities in the fight against demons. The new moon confirmed this. He argues that he has repeatedly sought help, but the church continually continues its affairs. The man became embarrassed and lowered his head. He asked, "Is it true?" and soon received confirmation of what was said. The sacred magic of the church is extremely effective against demons. The priests barely coped with her force, and she did not notice about the condition of the hero's skin. The church has received the exclusive right to apply all methods of counteracting demonic forces. The request goes to the church together with the payment for successful completion of the task. They literally scatter money on all the kingdoms on a global scale, and the king perceives them as a tool for profit of the greedy queen. He says he finally arrived, and thanks to the support of a church that helps numerous kingdoms, they cannot immediately meet all the requirements. It is angry because it still has its own priorities. Stalacrid causes the death of people. His kingdom annually transfers a huge sum of gold for the benefit of the church. It seems next time he should weigh 3 times before making a sacrifice. He emphasizes that donations to support the war come not only from the king. Like a real hero, he confidently states that he has the right to marry Princess Lesnar. He was surprised that the knight was called the prince. The king rhetorically asks him, "Are you ready to sacrifice the princess for the defense of the king?" He notes that the patronage of the church will benefit. The duty of the king is to stand on the protection of his monarch. He feels induced but remains stationary. Expecting the answers, he orders to give the princess to himself, promising the king not only peace, but also a little more. It is better to be on the mercy of demons than to rely on people like him, he says. He appeals to the king to return to reality, because this situation is not a joke at all. He addressed the guy whether he noted the mood that covered everyone. The warriors reported that the demons were defeated and the kingdom was rescued. His presence on the map was superfluous. He perceived it as a solemn greeting organized in his honor, and even waved in response. People say he is The king claims that he was not inflated. He orders the guy to leave because he is not going to talk to the way he is. He also orders the guy to inform the church that his kingdom is flourishing rapidly, and that the last day has come for them. The guy immediately realized that the king was burning with anger. Liver strongly wants to know the name of the one who coped with the demon. The minister appeals to the man, inviting to approach. The man confesses that he can barely believe it, but an inept man has managed to overcome the demons. The hero is in full surprise. I cannot believe that this man was actually a real hero. He suddenly rushed to the protagonist, insisting that he was telling the truth, because, in his opinion, the hero deceives. However, Ruya assures that the latter does not speak a lie. As for calls, this guy is truly selfless, like garbage, completely devoid of common sense. This guy is a real garbage, and the demon should already be mercilessly eliminated. Allowing the interlocutor to speak to the end, Gnome does not hesitate to strike Lily. She immediately orders the guy to silence, because she will not allow the coward, like him, to speak about her true master. Practically everyone was seeing with their own eyes as he fearlessly dealt with the demons. Even the knight commander known as Sizbok swore nightly could not forget this spectacular moment. Carl's library is truly impressive. He diminishes the one who is struggling, while he is resting and strikes. The girl orders him to get out of here. I am a pig and a pathetic girl, but her blow hurt the face of this character. He asks where this ghost came from, and the devil calls him a real helpless. He is about to punish the girl with the death penalty for the image of the hero, because such bullying is unacceptable, but no one is scared of her. Suddenly a white fog appears, through which a voice states, "There is only a Libra itself." He notes that Noam has coped perfectly, and everything happened flawlessly. And although he is really funny, it's time for him. The guy, gathering all his strength, rose into the air and flew. He claims that he could cope himself, but the devil asks, "Why spend the power on such?" While he considers his next meeting, he must wait and proceed. He suggested going down because he wanted to discuss with Ryan something important. The bottom line is that the king called only Russia, and the girls are not going to come. Will you please the king with miracles, if everything will be? He insists that the continuation of the royal kind is extremely important. But something is worried. The cause of his doubt were girls. Ironic. But the mother holds a low position, and no one wants to support Leslie's initiative, which is why she is deprived of the right to inherit. He sought to separate her from the problems of the royal family, hoping that she would find her happiness. At least, this was his desire, which only. In the royal palace, when he had free time, he thoughtfully considered what decision to make at the end. Suddenly he was summoned to the library that stood nearby. Proposes to discuss the case alone. Gnome notes that the hero obviously conceived some insidious plan. The girl actively advocates her guard. He orders a Binyan to watch Nam. The young man, along with his former friend, goes beyond the wall to the West Tower on the Centillion Channel. Reganus confesses that he misses that orderly life, but Liber refuses to return to the mention of that unhappy past, which is even reflected in his appearance. Although his relationship with the king is excellent, Libra has not seen the princess, and even if it turns out to be ugly, it is ready to endure it. Rui realized why Liber was doing so in his presence. He already met people who were proud of his skill, but his former friend was a completely different story. He has not yet demonstrated such behavior. Finally, the hero realized that he was seriously set to kill him, because his intentions were directed against them. He thinks of whether his ordinary, talentless cleaner will help him overcome him. Here the guy asks why the hero treats people as if they were. The selfish replies that he tries to give his life meaning. He believes that it will also be an advantage for the princess, because having married her and eliminating other king children, he will finally achieve his goal. Therefore he does not intend to bring anyone. Such people rarely occur in that church, so they will certainly use it. And hovering the nape, the he-goist does not stop humiliating the hero, insisting that he can even be useful to others, and, he said, should be rejoiced, because thus helps the hero's business. From his mouth, sharp abusive words broke out. He silently watched him until he continued to listen to his unworthy attempts. He resembles Ray's that she does not treat him from above, and immediately begins the attack. It strikes the guy, but does not even approach him. The selfish is convinced that he understood the essence of the problem, believing that Rowley was too bold. However, is our hero really aware of what is happening? For all others, he argued that the guy had outstanding abilities, although in fact it was not. He suggests that it is possible to acquire skills without a ceremony in the church, and also has the ability that dramatically enhances protection. Liver immediately recognizes his opponent and seeks to check his strength. It is going to prove that this guy's skill is just a blank joke. While he says, Ruya carefully reviews his characteristics, which dramatically enhance the protection. The screen shows the complete characteristics of Labor. This fragment is written with the intention to surprise. It turns out that the church gives its followers cunning skills that have become a business card. They ask if he would like to know his own skill, but Ruya replies that it does not care at all. It turns out that he is able to abduct the skills of others and use them as their own. He is a true selfish, convinced that he is the strongest. In his opinion, regardless of the power of the enemy, due to his unique skill, he always retains the advantage. Ruea will not be able to apply its skill while it is in its possession. His opponents already knew what despair was, at least by the moment of duel from Ruea. It is indicated that it is most likely the ability of a treacherous thief, not a prominent quality of a true hero. He applies the guy's mouth, emphasizing, "Only the winner always has the right to vote." Thanks to this, and when Liver has finally mastered his non-existent skill, he immediately starts an attack. The first stroke, Liber rises into the air, flying a long distance. He continues to fly, unbridled and twisting in the air. He urges Liber to see this on his own. Aware of what it is for power, it assumes that he has not only a muscular body and a striking physical force, but also incredible power. Around the rear of the hut, a hole was gradually formed. He was extremely impressed. He considers it incredible. The guy imagines how much he could grow his physical abilities due to this ability, but he warns himself. There is simply no such talent. Now he understood everything, but once everything was completely different. Someone who tirelessly tries to convince him that he is not able to recognize the truth. Things that our hero can truly be proud of. Take possession of that side. It is going to apply its ASAP, which Isa was about. Selfish can sacrifice his own talent to gain another person's skills. This is the highest level operation that can only be performed once in a lifetime. We plan to take possession of the protagonist, whom he does not have. And that's great. Finally, he can master the longest skill he dreamed of. It is an extremely powerful tool that was literally directly under his nose. Rua believes that there is an activation of higher skills. Deprivation has gained activity. It turns out that nothing happened. It seems like this impression. He regrets that he did not appreciate the weight of this person much earlier. Now his only goal is to deprive this guy's life. Gomanyak does not understand what is happening, while the protagonist urges him to pay attention to his own parameters. Labora's characteristics are presented. As you can see, he lacks one important feature. Being in a state of hysterical arousal, he begins to talk about compensation for the wall. The fear-covered Aru restlessly asks if he really has to pay. The conversation continues, and Leonardo adds, "That complacent fool is so confident in his abilities." But in the end, he was defeated. The reagist felt a slight sympathy for Libra, but realized that the guy provoked himself for such a fate. Carol spoke in defense of Ryu, claiming that it was he who started a clash, and the main character only reflected. He offends Libra, calling him a simple idiot who did not understand what he was doing. The protagonist mentioned that he had sent them home. But how did they become witnessing everything? She firmly admitted that she and Noah were watching the events from afar. This is how the maiden heart functions. No one is the exception. Evelite began its transfer because everything was obvious to them. She was forced to describe in detail the events of the king, calling him a pre-established old man with excessive importance. Despite this, she confidently explained that her actions were not aimed at his favor. He asked her not to call him an arrogant old man. Ria, in turn, apologizes for that devil. This applies to self-defense. Even if the evidence of the presence of loved ones cannot be proven, the church will clearly indicate at this point, King said. We must not forget that they have grown bypassing others. He assures that it is not necessary to worry. If they challenge him, the protagonist will instantly find himself in the heart of the events. Of course, he is not ready to make radical compromises, especially since their attempts are probably directed at his clave. And it should be noted, this man undoubtedly attracted their attention. He does not want to interfere with events, and does not intend to promote relationships with the church. The kingdom will make every effort to support him, and the king will not give way to express his sincere gratitude. He asks whether he will help only from sincere kindness, and the king unambiguously agrees. He wondered if he was hidden in his words' deeper motives. The man replied that his actions did not have any selfish basis. If someone had not stopped him and would let out Sanda's images, this man would definitely strike him and would have a real disaster. But even pouring it with water was already superfluous, as he noted. The king tells her that, while remaining a regular adventure seeker, he will not be able to stand up for his honor. He did not understand him, but the devil smiled for some unknown reason. The king again invites Ruya to join the ranks of the nobles of his kingdom. It seems that this man will refuse to accept the royal offer, and Rivia apologizes, and he assures that it is not necessary to worry. If the matter comes to a critical moment, The only thing it will do will erase the church from the face of the earth. He was a little indignant because of his words. They began to brag, firmly claiming that there was no equal power on this planet. She reached out, saying that she has a wonderful eye. She began to say that her life lasts much longer than the short existence of a person, and it is the accumulated wisdom that allows her to give birth to brilliant ideas. In the end, the essence of the wedding is to give a vow before God and become married. He begins to explain that the task of the church is to marry for the princess and ensure the belonging of the royal family by a man. All this will succeed until it remains free from any obligations. Indeed, everyone is able to associate their lives forever with one partner. This is a rule. To resist the attacks of the church, you need to get support of the kingdom. Only the one who is approved by the people has the right to marry the prince. Nature. The protagonist professes pacifism and believes that if you can avoid problems, this path should be chosen. Despite everything, he does not seek to be in the ranks of the aristocracy. Aristocrats are not just relatives of the king. People began to praise Abinion for her brilliant idea, which seemed to instantly attract the attention of all present. If such dynamics are preserved, the boys will soon gain advantage over her. Ask why the protagonist insists on watching history. He wants all decisions to be made for him. Although this option seems quite attractive, without a key element, successful completion of the task is impossible. Friends do not understand what Rias actually says. First of all, marriage is a union of two lovers who together build a common future, says the main character. Abinion, in response, asks the guy, "Doesn't you attract something less than this ideal?" Avalisk approaches Rui is extremely close, and he explains that his words should not be perceived literally. The night is pleasant, charming, and extremely expensive for him. The fact is that everyone is trying to get her hand. However, in order to avoid disorder, he's not going to marry her just like that. In the end, the king himself confessed that he would like to see her marry with the person she would choose. Their feelings are much more important, he says. They came to the conclusion, marriage is impossible without Rulix the. He rejoices that he has spoken to the king, because true marriage is possible only when partners love each other infinitely. They will soon know the truth. A phone call to Laselka will dispel all doubts, because it is absolutely right. It is strange to talk about the wedding when they have not yet determined who to share this holiday with. The protagonist visited the girl's house, and her face shone with genuine joy when meeting him. Informs them that Mr. Raya made an incredible contribution to this battle and should pay at least sharp curses. He orders the guy to find all the information about. The screen shows a limited number of LEDs that clearly emphasize the main features. The symbol of the heart is the undeniable proof of true feelings to the representative of the opposite sex. He asks thoughtfully, "When did the girl begin to feel love for you?" He is convinced that the events on the battlefield played their role. In addition, the guy hit a fool who attacked Lisleta. This is enough to bring someone to love. He turns to her daughter and begins to translate the details of the conversation with the teacher. He was surprised that his father directly turned to his daughter with this question. He stated that the king decided to give her into the hands of the church, but his father said unambiguously that this would not happen. He repeatedly emphasized this, despite the intentions of the king, with certainty. "I would never give my daughter." The church, meanwhile, will remain until the night falls. The father decides to marry her daughter. Lisleta is with a request. He asks him not to worry about her, because the girl is determined to devote her life to the service of Shibor. Continuing to grow dramatic, the king asks her whether she wants to find out what the bridegroom is talking about. However, she said that her fiancé would be a woman. They thought that Rua would always be around. But the guy perceived it and was angry. The girl did not understand the last statement. "I didn't understand" again. He climbs to Rua and welcomes the boy on the fact that the girl really fell in love. Then the conversation is gaining a new rotation. She apologizes, but cannot do so. He notes that it is not a guy, because he is a truly hero, and if he becomes her husband, the girl feels true happiness. He turned to a boy and a girl and stated that there was already a bride in Russia, and she does not really fit this role. The girl begins to explain that she is also in love with Mr. Warma. She says that her lord is the most important thing for her. After all, she was here because of Mr. Ray's tireless effort, so he must thank him. The girl will not prevent him from creating a happy life. The last slide emphasizes that we are here. Just let go is not the only way to show gratitude. The knight continues to explain to her that she is unable to just pick him up for herself. He argues that such a trait is characteristic of powerful and influential people. Giving his own example, he says he has 4 wives, each of whom gave birth to a child. Instead, obviously the king cannot decide. He is convinced that one can without doubt trust the case of a person of the type of Russia, and at the same time does not plan to touch the young lady Noma, because we cannot forget about her extraordinary abilities, which can be a great result. He notes that the true lord has numerous wives, and if he refuses this opportunity, the main character was asked if he would agree to this marriage for the prosperity of the country in the future. He is convinced that the refusal will make him the devil for them, because they will perceive him in the eyes of the people. Rua realizes that everything has already been decided for him. Suddenly everyone appeared. He tightened the guy firmly stating that he now had him, and he hopes that Ray will continue to do good for their country. He intends to arrange a solemn holiday in her honor, and claims that the king is very... Averless realizes that she has not felt such carefree joy for a long time. Now he has 2 wives. At the same time, all the inhabitants of the kingdom, having learned about the events on the battlefield, are convinced that a real character appeared at their land. However, he was only another adventure in an endless series of feats, and his life was devoid of... It was the designation of the Rua left in someone's notebook, against which the sound was heard, as if someone was opening something. He says he will walk with... Another guy from their company reported that he is now departing from here. However, these were the king's children. The brothers and sister Leslid returned. What awaits us next? He looked at his wife with easy surprise, because she always chose an exclusive style, avoiding the usual outfits. Ziza never behaved like an ordinary girl, because she devoted her entire life to demanding workouts, preparing to become a knight. However, she remains uncertainty. Will she be able to become a wonderful wife for such an incredible existence? She will fulfill any desire of the protagonist without hesitation. He cannot grasp what the king was handed over to us. He offers to enjoy delicious food, freshen up in a warm bath or work. The time he knew he was spent in the laboratory together with the wing, which has become a wife, moved here. She seriously plunged into the study of alchemy. Luam, in turn, arranged one of the rooms of the estate as a secret laboratory, where, as obsessed, experiments with various substances and tested new recipes. Guild of Artisans buy everything at income. It accepts that the obligatory presence indicates the presence of something significant. The first prince of the Centralian kingdom named Samantao is represented. He turned to the guy, asking if he was... Princesses Abella expresses his gratitude to Ru for his merit. The second prince named Rauselch, confident in his future as a king, also expresses the approval of the youth, hoping that he will continue to remain loyal to his lord. A couple of lovers watched and listened closely. Zamanto claims that it makes no sense to hammer the heads of the commoners with unnecessary chats about the next ruler, because, in his opinion, it is the eldest son of King Leon who will become the ruler. The servant tells him that if a young man wants to swear allegiance to someone, then it should be done solely through her. Rug does not realize what is happening. The prince is convinced that the main role is played in the struggle for the throne, so the heir should be the oldest among them. The princess explains that the kingdom has already ruled the queen, and therefore the throne should belong to the most wise. Her husband and Roselle have already gone. The wife began to explain that all 3 are the real children of King Centrikillen, and each of them has a legal right to the throne. However, after all, only one of them will be responsible for the future of this kind. Antatune addressed her with the question of what remained unknown to her client, because they argued about how best to follow the body. Your father's noble blood flows into you. Nothing can be done with it. He heard that she really tried this time. Ironically, the man asks whether she should constantly raise the title of queen. The reality is this: half of the blood that pulsates in her veins comes from a homeless woman who does not even know who she is. So, the daughter born of a dog remains a dog. Lads begins to explain that she was born of a lower-rank man, which led to an unfair attitude towards her. And yet, despite the fact that the girl was crowned with the honorary title of a knight, Lads is strongly ready to give all her forces to the service of this country, seeking to pay her respect. Brother assures her that it is a wonderful idea, and with such a belief, she will tirelessly fight for her life. Like a hunting dog, which everyone can use, even if at first glance it seems incapacitated, she expresses her sincere gratitude to a certain person. At the same moment, Ru suddenly approached him. Her face flashed with bright anger. The first prince grabbed him and lifted him over his head. Ando asked him to let him go. She continued to talk to the prince, claiming that every person should be appreciated regardless of their origin. To ignore this and to compare people is almost the same as depriving them of unique qualities. The prince appealed to the guards to support him and eliminate the protagonist, but the king resolutely intervened. He replies that it was the interlocutor who showed disrespect, and there is no point in order to apologize. The kingdom representative decided to temporarily postpone this discussion. Zlantano insists that this man is being executed because his actions would cause irreparable harm to the royal family. He started explaining that Rua is a real hero of the kingdom. If it were not for the victory of the protagonist over the demons, the country would have long been destroyed. He did not even look at the possibility of execution. Nanto intends to deal with anyone who is engaged in registration of such wolves, and wants to be sure that Rui will remain devoted to him, as D. King gave him the will to act at his discretion, but he still has important tasks. He is interrupted by a son who immediately begins to introduce himself and talk about his life. The royal daughter assured that she would never leave him. He asks his wife, "Did they leave?" The owner of the kingdom will deprive his children the right to the throne. Children perceive this as a manifestation of unacceptable behavior. They could not be convinced, but the couple will cope. After all, they deserve the role of future kings, and his children do not. Oldu-san began to explain that due to his unique skills, solid experience, and tireless preparation, he was rightly considered the most worthy heir. However, it is unfair to him. With irony, he began to make fun of his son's statements against injustice. They wanted to know what prompted them to return. Boulder-san states that this region is his homeland. The daughter adds that she was born and grew up here, and O assures that she loves this land with all her heart. Why did they abandon her in so hurry? And the daughter began to refuse that. According to the beginning of all events, a demonic and evil effect. They ruthlessly defeated everyone who stood on their way, and everyone wondered why the events unfolded that way. They escaped because they believed that the country would destroy demons, and Zimnato, having accepted it for granted, also left the territory. Each of them still owns a mother's home. If they had chosen a return to the same house, their lives could turn into a true luxury. Each of them lived in their parents' house until the news of the victory over the demons. Their determination to return after such events testified either about extraordinary courage or a certain stupidity. It was at this point that Rugal realized why the king made such an unwavering decision. Children apologize to their princess believes that even if the whole population of the kingdom is destroyed, the preservation of at least one representative of the royal family reveals a real chance of restoring the country. Even when the demons fill the area and burn it to the basics, only one pedigree is enough to start a new life. She replied that yes, because she was ready to be marked as a shameful woman who left her homeland for the sake of saving the nation. The couple is convinced that the king's daughter came out of the situation quite profitable. What they did can only be called an act of serious betrayal. Coward cannot be killed. It seems to me that children ask him to wait near his students. After all, he has another child, and he is much better than others. Her mother was a simple person, so it was impossible to bring her name to the throne of candidates. However, this time, the king resorted to unusual measures. He disqualified all the heirs of the throne. She swung sharply and then turned immediately. Refusing, she stated that all her life was prepared as a knight, not as a ruler, and does not know how to manage the country. She states that she is able to master it immediately, because she possesses the title of the knight. This title is very similar to royal. It can be said, it becomes a kind of basis. So children begin to ask, "Rui, did you think about something?" He says he has to discuss it with his husband. So, if you think about, Mr. Rai is also no exception. His own decision. Just as the choice of the king interrupted everything, little unpredictable consequences. Amazed by the news, they could not believe that their sister married a hero who saved the country. If Leslids agree to become a queen, will it mean that Ray will become the next king? After all, the main character, now the son-in-law of the king, has every reason to claim the throne. However, his thoughts are suddenly interrupted. The first prince again offends Leslids, making her up crazy, born with a commoner, and now you, as if you think you can harass everyone and take possession of the throne? The dream appeals to his father to come to his senses, because Sinanto, who inherited the blood of both of his parents, is now the ruler of the majestic southern empire. He has not yet learned the lesson, not realizing that aristocrats do not allow themselves to call their brothers meaningless. It does not stop erroneous statements. Now he avoids the mention of kings, because obviously they do not allow such behavior. He states that children have in their blood the inheritance of representatives of other royal lands. This means that they are only semi-narrow, because the second part of their noble kind comes from foreign nobles, and the boys proved it themselves with their actions. All, with the exception of the youngest, were anger. Please make a few words permission. They allow him to speak a few words, because he was silent until now. The king firmly stated that his position is undoubtedly correct, and that the lamb would remain devoted to him until the very end. Bella and Zimnanto were stunned by the discovery of what got into their hands. He confessed that, as the second prince, from the very beginning, his chances of inheritance of the throne were miser. The boys realized that at first he considered himself a little larger than an ordinary person. The section is opened by the words of Roselle, who reports that rumors about him are already flying throughout the kingdom. It is said that his strength is boundless, and there is no equal to the protagonist. Immediately after returning the youngest son to his homeland, a variety of stories began to spread about him, and he felt instantaneously that his gentle smile was hiding something bad. The story is that the boy has no scar. Ray begins discussing this topic with his youngest son, and the son of the king clearly shares the opinion of the guy known around the world. The second prince insists that it cannot be so. The Lesleds' husband, chosen first to inherit the throne due to his abilities and achievements, does not really have the necessary skills. Undoubtedly, Craviechi gained glory throughout the country because he practically won the demon. He is really proud of married to the Lord Jesus. Apparently the second prince has the rightness, a ruin. In the end, the skills are the most valuable asset in this world. Having mastered some skill, a person can easily claim any high position. Therefore, no one can take the throne of the king without having a powerful arsenal of abilities. The protagonist is negative about the persons who, trying to condemn others, at the same time claim that their actions are dictated by good intentions, and is still unable to unravel the true intentions of the other party. This step indicates that his intention is to use the opportunity to support bold people. But Ruri still cannot solve the true meaning of his words. One of the interlocutors asked, "What is the level of adventure you represent?" To which the hero replied coldly, "D Royal." They asked why the Adventure Guild provided such a meager reward. The king wants to issue a new decree immediately, but the youngest son claims that it is impossible at this time. She realizes that this is a great idea, because a person with sufficient skills will be able to provide the right title without extra effort. The Master Rose is convinced that the rank will soon become ours. Rua thought, does he want to increase his adventures? He sincerely seeks to increase his rank. Ruia promises to make every effort and take every opportunity to grow. Thank you for your view. He does not realize at all whether he is dealing with genuine advice, whether he is dealing with cunning deception. Now he will not be able to marry Lesleden until he reaches a certain rank. If this does not happen, it will refuse to inherit the throne. Thus, the children gained even more time. The whole situation is only beneficial for both of us. He reports that he is attracted to Russell's attitude, because he constantly expressed his approving words. However, the man was convinced that as soon as he refused the inheritance of the throne, his anger would rage, and he would lose control of himself. He notes that it is just ridiculous, because his attention always returns to such things. The next day, the company has already gathered in the Adventure Guild. Destruction reports that it should immediately rise to the rank of an experienced adventurer. His great desire to succeed in this was due to several good reasons. First, it would be great if he could have appeared next to a Rankin during his famous 20 seconds. Secondly, he was very attracted to the prospect of marrying Leslie. The girl is so confident in her fiancé that she has already started to think of wedding plans. Ambassador Adventure announces that the protagonist has gained rank B, and suddenly the moon will sound cry. A special appeal of the royal palace demanding to exterminate the demons was approved by the Adventure Council, and they decided to increase it. The VAT was also awarded the rank of B, which was able to save 200 soldiers. He asks in surprise whether it is normal to move directly from one rank to another, because usually an increase is possible only by performing a number of quests and a gradual growth of his own strength. The master begins to shout loudly, "Well, whose guilt is that my achievements are such extraordinary? Destruction of demons is a matter that only gods possess." And then he counts on additional hugs. Ruya apologizes. He asks why he was brought up so that he reached only such a rank, because it is clearly not enough. There is no one among the S-barriers of S who could resist the army of demons alone. According to one date, the council is headed only by stubborn elders, so he was allocated only beer. She feels that she is treated unfairly and offers to defeat the whole advice. The protagonist believes that she just appeared, but her words really annoy him. Obtaining a certain rank is a significant achievement, but incredible accomplishments, such as the elimination of Vire, which require the assignment of the rank of S, belong to a completely different league. That is why, in order to fully understand, so sometimes candidates, he asks when the next exam will be held now. Diet reports that the next exam is scheduled for the next month, that is, will take place in just 5 days. They lost this opportunity, because the next one would only appear in 2 to 3 years. There was no chance for them. He is aware that you need to pass the exam on the first attempt, and thinks about how harsh this test may be. In addition, Noam plans to take the same test, a calm and striking girl, who struck with her indifference. Side by side with the boy, she revealed the spirit of adventure and develops on equal ones with him. No one has the skill of alchemy. The Diet reposes the boy and plans to make a letter of recommendation. In the middle of such chaos, she did not even hide her presence. Rua realizes that if the local guild was not headed by a girl, his path would definitely be much more difficult. He sincerely thanks her for delicious food. Then she approached the master of her guild and noted that she was waiting patiently for their arrival. She persistently asks them to rise even higher, to open her completely new, amazing things. By the way, the guy's progress is striking at its incredible speed. I will take care of all the organizational details. The guys just need to appear in a certain place of meeting to the right. They say everything changes every time. This time the events unfold in the south, in the kingdom of Rubler. Vigia tries to remember where he heard this name. The girls are delighted to go forward, performs its plans, and then prepares for the next episode. A few days later, they arrive in the kingdom of Russia. The kingdom is characterized by a warm climate, which contributes to its prosperity. The state's center is concentrated around several port cities, where developed maritime trade provides stable well-being. The unprecedented saturation of the blue huge sea is fascinating and inspiring. She is incredibly happy because she sees it for the first time. Sincerely speaking, it is the first time it is by the sea, and even the wind is filled with completely different, unknown aromas. When a Binyan Rui appears, sometimes it seems that it is really a spirit that can cause a natural disaster, that can instantly destroy tens of thousands of people. And there are still such as it inhabiting the deepest corners of the city. Asks whether the devil connects to magical spirits. She replies that there are always those who really resonate with its essence. There are also those who, without a apparent reason, rush into a deadly struggle, tightening all the living in this stream. Obviously, she can create real troubles, and the guy is happy to be her friend. He believes that without the ability to own the force of the ring, such a phenomenon is simply impossible. In fact, this is the second set of printed products. And with each transition from one country to another, all the successes obtained are dropped. However, he now does not have the ability to go back. He still does not realize the trick of the guy, the recommendation. But this time at stake, his own exam, and he cannot afford any mistake. Upon learning that only a young girl was able to head the guild of the Centrisian kingdom, he immediately begins to humiliate her, considering her still immature. He is still able to tolerate images aimed at him, but cannot accept when the line becomes a target of humiliating statements. Thanks to the numerous achievements in the native land, the man began to be called Ra. Its achievement is consciously outlined in simple language, which should indicate his remarkable abilities. The guy is said to have forged an official document for which he is expected to be imprisoned. He now intends to make sure how strictly criminals are punished in this country, and to be responsible for creating such an absurd document by contacting the leader of the guild. He pours his potion on the man and orders him to sincerely apologize. To reveal his true essence, the guy does not destroy his special mood. The girl tells her husband that he intends to pass the second exam from Aaron. If he got acquainted with the papers carefully, he would understand what his views were directed. It turned out that the girl had skills similar to those who were famous for the true king of alchemy. Its potential was estimated at SSS level. Undoubtedly, she was an ideal candidate for the exam, so he immediately decided to start preparing the necessary materials. It does not matter to him that the destruction of the dignity has no ability. It turned out that only a few, deprived of abilities, which made Rue surprised to watch their own actions. Official procedures will begin soon. If in the future, the glory related to the creation of a circle of highly qualified specialists spread during the exam for which he answered, then know that he could not recognize a person endowed with legendary abilities. In the future, his name will go down in history as a prominent figure of this world. Of course, it's too much. The area overflowing with monsters is waiting for its hero. If Roos opposes them alone, everyone will immediately understand that his day has come. He is convinced that he is not capable of such actions. However, if he has succeeded, then the man realized. He genuinely rejoices, because the man himself expressed it. In this place, Ray has not heard such words for the first time. Now it is sad for me that she agreed to the agreement, and they are going to show that the beastless beast, She apologizes to him, hoping for him to realize that she had to do so. Laurel assures that it is natural because he saved her life. However, she has not yet received drops of what Russia did for her. He wondered if Mujis would receive new states that would cause his martyrdom in a few days. The guy is also wondering what effect it can have. He feels relief, because the life of a man is not in danger. A few minutes later, they were on a huge plain in the vicinity of the Rubrum Kingdom. Space was amazed by its spreading. The perfect battlefield that deservedly bears its glory. He insists, don't be shy, expressing your thoughts, and it quickly cuts them. Be prepared. In anticipation, they passionately argued, immersed in a slight haze created by a particular group. He is not aware of what is happening, and the aroma gradually began to fascinate everyone, moving into the depths of the sea. In other words, right now, the Romanist realizes that every opponent will have to win. One of the guys asks how much you can fascinate with this technique. A flock of creatures approached them relentlessly, said Abinion Light. Similar to semi-humanities, these creatures take on an uncertain mucus form. Among them, Deimos even feels the presence of the undead. However, no magician receives the proper potion. Ruga asks, how many of these monsters are really 200 Abinion replicas? The hero convincingly assures that everything will be fine, because this guy will be able to overcome each of the enemies. They were collected here solely for one purpose. If he loses at least one, the city will face a catastrophe. Abinion assures that such an error will not make it. Even if something is unforeseen, it is a city that has humiliated him, deserves disappearance. Let it be wiped off the face of the earth, he says, determined to attack the rapid monsters approaching. He twisted his hands lightly, and a small waterway arose, ruthlessly destroying the months. The thing was already under the influence of a sinister curse. The next day, Protein was finally destroyed. Wildmaster was already bald. He asked what happened here and why so many months. He began to carefully inspect the bodies of the monster, and was impressed when he saw who was in the room. The conductor has even overcome those monsters, of which useful materials are usually extracted. And what about a special product of his city? How could it happen? Was there a reason for male curiosity? He argues that responsibility is not on him, but on the man himself, because it was the disbelief that forced him to agree to it. Smiling, he said, that's how to say from the beginning. It turned out that Noam and Abinion had already collected materials from 5,000 monsters and met with a local manager of artisans. She delegated all the tasks to them. She didn't even have to do something on her own. An event should take place in a few days. What to do at this time? She intends to find out what the previous exams looked like. However, no one spoke surprise when he looked at her. The playlist says that the guy and girls seem terrible. Obviously, this is a consequence of the influence of the monster. He begins to sniff their bodies, but they do not suspect anything. They may already be used to the smells of each other. According to testimony, passers-by, without standing the annoying odor, became like, what is this unbearable smud? Rua was convinced that the reason lies in Davila's friend. Answer right before their eyes. Before us is a wonderful sea resort of the kingdom of Ru. Having grown in the internal regions of the mainland, he never suspected that bathing in the sea could be so unforgettable. The clothes that this guy wears a swimsuit, created, it seems especially for vacation. Dressing melts and preparing for action, he could not understand why he was not soul around. He apologizes for making him wait. She demonstrates Nalman her bathing suit. He begins to look carefully at her, assuming that she is in fact dressed in ordinary underwear. He even says she wants to feel a youth like a little girl before marrying. In fact, Noam was quite shy, and the seller assured her that it was an absolutely ordinary swimmer. She cannot believe her eyes, and only at that moment she realized that all the other girls also appeared in swimwear. He says he must penetrate the mystery of her heart, because she worked so tirelessly, and his view is now directed at someone else. She bought a swimsuit, hoping to attract the attention of Ru. For the girl, this became a real challenge, because she sought to earn his approval. The brownist tells her, if I admit it is wonderful to you, let's see if you perceive it as an integral part of yourself. It does not know how to react, but thanks sincerely. At this point, it turned into a swimsuit made from a semi-spiritual, semi-physic extrusion, capable of softly changing its shape. It has a special device that allows you to instantly make these changes, and he says, if you are so openly seduced by Ru, he will undoubtedly become yours, but if you continue in the same spirit on e-play, everything can go wrong. The girls decided that while on the coast, they should certainly spend the day full. They took the main character to the coast, discussing how they would spend this unforgettable day. He was angry and asked, did they come here to enjoy the holiday? The exam is not far off, but there are many things. In the end, they spent a great time on the beach, enjoying every moment of rest. It was the exam day in the central arena, founded by the order of the king. She was nicknamed the Military Paradise. This structure was built for solemn ceremonies in the kingdom of Rubrim. Once bloody battles gave real pleasure. Nobody knows when a familiar stereotype of a weirdo, deprived of any abilities, appears again. At the same moment, they are treated as a person deprived of any abilities. Rua believes that he disappeared. Big men say that a weirdo appeared again who does not know their place. Without unnecessary words, they smile quietly. They say, "This ability will certainly open the way to adventure." The selfishists claim that this rank does not fit him. They believe that he was too united in a classroom in which he tried to advance despite his minor abilities. Stay calm, because the gnome begins to pay. Reganis says that he actually does not have the right abilities, but it is not an excuse to give up. Whatever circumstances, they should be taken as they are. Men note his exceptional courage. Uncle says that if Ray still believes that perseverance will help him to arrange the case, it means that he has not yet reached maturity. It will not be possible to get a Rainial plan, based solely on his unbreakable determination. He is not aware of how he plans to achieve his goal is just awful. The three continue to remind him that he is not ready yet. But Russian is indifferent to their words. And when she is aggressive to men, a girl with an incomprehensible expression of the face is silently watching everything. He received a drink for endurance, vigor potion, refreshing elixir, potion against stone transformation and throat. The guy's hands are full of pillars. They do not stop mocking him, claiming that even with such support it is not guaranteed that he will be able to take the plowing exam, because he is approaching extremely quickly. They noticed another little boy, and thinking that he belonged to the category of Sam, decided to take him on the right way. He expresses gratitude to men, because greetings should begin soon before the exams. At the same moment, an authoritative voice reports that all exam participants need to gather in front of a state building. A huge number of people were constantly heading to the state power building. The atmosphere of acute tension was mastered around. Before the adventure, they presented a new title, which is headed by the curator responsible for the promotion of the promotion, as well as a direct member of the Guild Council, known under the nickname Invincible Shield. This curator appeared on the screen. Grizz, known in the adventures of Aaron under the nickname Iron Fork. The narrator again goes on stage with the adventurer Arang. Nick gave the labyrinth the name Sene. Also on the stage appears Girl Saber, head named. All that is depicted is marked by a familiar greeting of the cure. Together with the speaker, there are 4 people behind the podium, who everyone wants to become. He has great hope that there will be as many those who reach their level among today's newcomers. He is aware that he will soon be perceived in the same way as modern Arang adventure. He announces him that it may be, none of them changes. Hendler shook her claw, offensively calling her tooth. So we thought. But the guy adds that he has another word that he wants to say before. The first prince of the Central Kingdom was the Earthly, who made an unexpected impression on Ruo. He advises not to express excessive anxiety, because, in his opinion, this guy is undoubtedly the most promising candidate for the throne of the Centrosilic Kingdom. Members of the Kingdom can think of why the prince from a foreign state was here. However, there is no point in doubting. This young man has a deep connection with such cases. In the end, his second mother is the bride of the King of the Kingdom, Kairian, known for her battles with the Centaurus, and earlier she ruled as the Queen of the Scalacy. In other words, the King of the Scales Kingdom is his uncle, and he gave the guy the opportunity to meet their world. He remembers where he first heard the stories about this kingdom. Manta unambiguously believes that the horizon does not see a drop of good. The most important thing is that those who receive low rating from the outset will not be able to take even the first step to change. The conversations continued on this topic, and this applies to those whose lives are under less favorable conditions. It is extremely important for them to be examined. If you get a solid financial support through the sale of reproductions, they will help with the rest of the cost without hesitation. He tirelessly bribes his guardian, promising him a brilliant future, but Rue hears every word perfectly, because he has $80 million. Now the main character is absolutely convinced that this exam is definitely not passed. He seems to have come here by accident because of the mistake of the regional guildmaster, and the other fully expects his participation. Both the prince and the king whispered quietly about it. He says that if he dare to act, then you should try the scheme. Omi does not even realize who her ruler says. Mantotel is a person who always justifies hope. He is not aware of the purpose of checking the missing. But at the same moment it becomes clear that his bright future is waiting. He wished her good luck, assuring that his name would soon appear in the announcement. The list has ended. But the name of the RO has never appeared. It claims that others do not have abilities at all, and the adventure itself clearly confirms it. From birth, they wore indomitable, unhappy journeys, abandoned by God. Despite their poor number, they always find the way here. Not having any true abilities, they somehow have received a B rank, but it does not give you the right to claim the same. According to the rules established, they are allowed to participate, and the public actively supports them. He reports that since the Adventure Guild appeared, none who had the necessary abilities has gained RN. It was the same before, the same will continue. This is evidenced by the rating itself. It seems that even those who have not been able to pass the trial, who seem to be able to see those who in the future are destined to stand over them due to their powerful abilities. And this can benefit the entire Adventure Guild. So why don't you leave this place before their bodies suffer? He is aware that he will definitely go by. Rodiganus states that he is not going to seem because his initial goal is to get Aaron. The adventure is set to challenge the most impossible. Viewers tirelessly support each other. He cannot understand why this thing is constantly radiating aura. What is the special examination of the language? According to him, among them it seems there is a man with common sense. However, like a strict examiner, he orders, anyone who is able to take at least one step will be immediately disqualified. The narrator reassures them, noting that falling into a pit is only one of the 4 dangers that are still waiting for them. At the moment when the main character was cold and calmly thrown into the abyss, the exchange of short but expressive views with Albion finally convinced him. This fragment skillfully reveals the individual character traits due to the laconic but rich content of the sentence. Everyone began to ask the question sharply. What is happening here? Someone, not endowed with special abilities, also stated, some adventure. Rodriguez states that its ability has caused a breakthrough in space. This is a degenerate point. Others are affected by what is happening. The rule of prey is to implement everything immediately. Incapable people will receive a spare exam, whose task is to get out of the dungeon. If they manage to overcome the trial, the guy will understand that even those who are devoid of special abilities have potential. They have unlimited time, but without determination, the exam may end. All this is under the close guidance of Centanus, and if there is a desire to give up, they can always count on his help. However, we continue to give people a chance to live, even if they have not fulfilled their responsibilities. Ready to take up the case. They have real hearts. Here is the pride of those who do not even have crumbs. Men who met and gave us elixirs want to continue in the same spirit, because by combining efforts, they will be able to fully overcome these difficulties. Angry due to the lack of expected forces, they did not hold back their dissatisfaction. However, men claimed that they had never promised to have such opportunities. It turned out to be their 7th orange. At first glance, they seemed ordinary tires, but in fact, because of pain and suffering that few could endure, they still came to it. So, I thought Revia. They are convinced that they will be able to withstand even without the blessing of natural abilities, because for 20 years have been committed to this business. They are nourished with unbreakable determination. He addresses the billion question, can she hear? Replies that he hears him and seems to have fallen to a completely strange place. The devil is already waiting. The Romanist states that the case is not. He will try to solve it on its own, and it must continue to support Nanana. It is reported that RUA shows excessive caution, like your attitude. It seems that none of us demonstrates in the best light, so she advises to take a joint view and see this live. It is she who is a girl standing next to the corpse, the one who controls the process, smiling, ruthlessly kills people. He realized that it was a simple selection of candidates. Obviously, the task was to withstand the constant pressure on the test. He is convinced that thanks to the strength of the Rihei spirit, they will easily cope with all the difficulties. However, are there any such spirits? Merkut and announces that excellent prey has been found. This girl causes a lot of hassle, says Shiger, who is able to turn into a panther. The girl considers her extremely sweet, and therefore seeks to stroke her. Shiger demonstrates his abilities, but regrets that today's task was to make a loud sound. It launches the process of transformation into a beast, reaching 50% of its metamorphosis. At the same time, she declares the groom, the main character, that the chances for her, even the appearance of a cat, are extremely scanty. They are going to overcome her, so the girl will do it for you. She considers them the worst, because she emphasizes that people cannot be evaluated only in the presence or absence of certain abilities. Destroying has a force that exceeds the rest of the rest several times, but they openly ignore it, bypassing it. How can they call themselves examiners? What exactly did they think? She does not understand what she is talking about. Does it become more stupid because of its current state? Realizing her, she begins to move to, and the girl considers herself bold because she dared to withstand the established hierarchy, which she challenged. The mouth was filled with foam and she felt, it seemed as if her nose had pierced with a sharp knife. Ray believes that this pain arose due to a mixture of several epic events. When it turns into a wildlife creature, her vision, hearing, and smell acquire extraordinary sharpness. In other words, her reaction to the potion. The condition of the radiator still leaves much to be desired. The stimulating aroma is gaining intensity. Again, the potion rushes mercilessly in your side. The guardians scream at her, ordering to improve their transformation into a beast so that she no longer responds to the smells that are currently threatening. Not paying attention to the guy, she is guided by her animal instincts. It should be noted that the girl, guided by her instincts, entered a kind of game of potion and trapped. She completely neglected the potential of her opponent, because his ability is much more powerful. What, in fact, is contained in the bottle they show. Under the influence of this potion, the orange is literally dissolved. And a great gratitude to Gnome for her ruthlessness. She really put an end to her. The heroine gets a nail-decorated tank and is asked how it happened that even these weapons are suitable. The movie replies, "I just bought it there." Due to the alchemical effect, the girl becomes 10 times stronger at the time of contact, and her mass seems to increase by about 300 times. Make sure that after the girls, everything looks absolutely awful. She missed everything through her black glass. She asks her not to be killed because she does not want him to flatten her like a grenade. Abinion is happy with her. In fact, they are angry watching how events unfold. In the end, the ability to turn into an abyss has certain conditions and is subordinated to the rank system. Undoubtedly, it cannot be compared to the power of SSS Rift. She approaches Gnome and announces her that she successfully overcome the first stage of the test. He was extremely happy that such a talented girl with amazing abilities successfully overcome the test. On this occasion, he offered a duel to celebrate her entry into the ranks of a Manga. She immediately intervened, repeating the words that they had just said the girl. She begins to tell her that even before she gained her abilities, she experienced incredible moments of life. Before she gained her abilities, her existence was full of cruelty until everything had changed one day. The meeting gave her incredible happiness, which much exceeded even the magical abilities of the alchemical king. She has no idea what he talks about. I cannot break away from watching the gnome. She sees that her master made sure that in the near future not have any worries. However, even if something happens, she will strongly force her enemies to realize how distorted the world they live in. And he decided to focus solely on his own experience. They again join the ranks of adventure seekers, despite the lack of special skills, and confidently continue their journey. The uncle advises them to be a little touched, because without proper endurance, the adventure can quickly exhaust strength. Now, let's move on to the next episode. It will always remain the last to avoid an unexpected blow to the back. He was surprised that these men were so reliable. At the very beginning, thanks to the perfect defense of these powerful men, no one even got injuries. The protagonist directly addressed one of them with the question, "Why did you take the command, and why don't you behave naturally?" The rear defender was so filled with hatred of the game that it began to feel its bitter impact on every cell of her body. And Rui asks if he realizes how harsh this world is for people devoid of abilities. Deprived of abilities, they will probably gain their reward. Again, he started an annoying laughter. Irony. To get to Arab Adventure, you need to become a real idiot. Undoubtedly, they seek to become part of Arab Adventure. One noted the other that he was drinking water too actively. In the dungeon, it is important to maintain the intervals for its consumption. You do nothing. He has already decided to divide his flight. Now they are all allies, so everyone can count on the support of the other by throwing all their fierce fire in time. Fast pace, but the characters are able to slow down to move quietly. The protagonist is only worried about one thing, his life. They came across a point ahead. But was it really a way forward? It seems strange to you, because it is usually light at the end. He asks you to wait, because something went wrong, but the man is indifferently moving forward. He recalls that this ability seems to be broken, so the passage to the exit is blocked on one side. This is the place where adventure seekers were identical to where they were first thrown. Such a smiling man did not allow them to miss this unforgettable experience. If they lack the courage, they do not even deserve the opportunity to take the Arab exam. However, just in case, he wants to emphasize that he is ready to accept anyone who wants to serve. A person almost seems, but unexpectedly finds the strength to return to the struggle. The retreat also requires courage. They plan to leave this place first and then appeal to the guild council, declaring an unfair test. At the moment, such a plan seems to them the best. A Binyan appeared, and seemed to be about to say something important. He noted that he would look forward to her words. The second round begins, and there are already those who, having exhausted the strength, found themselves on the verge of opportunities. Their courage is manifested in the fact that, despite the weakness, they are here. In these circumstances, when resources are limited, this test should be perceived as a training session and the first to reach the surface. He delivered a detailed lecture, and Ryu completely grasped all the nuances. And also his analysis, according to which he intends to go to. They noted that the condition was too destroyed. They do not even imagine how difficult it is to destroy the nucleus of this dungeon. It is located in the deepest parts, and although we do not know how far it extends underground, we can confidently say that it is at least 20 floors. The protagonist is constantly beating the floor with the same pace, so it is instantly moving to the lowest level. In such a situation, a vivid idea is inextricably linked to hard work. The impressive mood inspires them all, and then everyone wants to unite in a single company. One of the men also finds a way out of the situation. With each blow, it dropped deeper and deeper. Coming to the bottom, he saw an amazing object that resembled a crystal, a new hint in his search. About the nucleus, he delayed the quiet sound, which seemed to warn the inevitable destruction. He escaped, and the boys were genuinely happy. Asks them or all already managed to go outside. A man who owns a dungeon states, "You are not able to understand those events that have already happened." The protagonist is indifferent, because he gave all his efforts to overcome the trial. The examinator announces that the dungeon has been finally destroyed because it belonged to the country of destruction. Countries use dungeons to produce a variety of resources. The economy of the whole city will stop, which will turn a huge disaster. Dungeon gun. Numerous jobs have disappeared, and all local adventurers are left without tasks. The curator asks the guys the question, how do they plan to bear responsibility to hundreds of ordinary people who have been influenced by their actions? In this case, the protein is adjusted seriously. Do they have responsibility? A certain adventure seeker, turning to the examiner, calls him a joker. In response, he states that they have destroyed the dunes. He states that it was he who destroyed the nucleus, although the experimenter forced him to resort to this plan. He threw them into a dungeon, instructed to find a way to escape, and guided solely by his instructions, they could finally escape. The words of the curator sounded like this. Despite the lack of abilities, they were able to find a way to cope with the task. It is engulfed in fury, and is not aware of the connection between its words and the destruction of fools. He remembers how he said, "Then we will pay this high price for this grand day." The venturer's friendly with his fingers, convincingly stating that he will do it. Since this guy acts as an examination supervisor, his actions indicate that he has prepared a demonstration example of a problem. After all, using the ability to manipulate space, he closed the exit from the dungeon, which means the only way to get out is to destroy the wall, isn't it? However, if the task was impossible to accomplish, his qualification of the supervisor was significantly questioned. He believes that right now is it time to act according to his status and show everything that it means to take responsibility. Ventura began to mock him, accusing him of forcing him to pass the exam on absurd conditions, and when it became serious, it immediately flee from responsibility. They also discussed where he could defend the honor of the orang class. The curator states that he is absolutely indifferent. At first he was against it himself, and the guy also did not seek to take the role of their guardian. However, the circumstances forced him to intervene. So there is a feeling that the guilt lies exclusively on his shoulders. After all, he said, as the chief examiner, he has all the responsibility. He reports to him the whole story, adding that all the troubles arose through a stupid organization by gilding this senseless experience. He confidently states that no thing belongs to him. The ventures thought about what step to do next. It is mentioned that the examiner advised to turn to a person with deeper knowledge to ask questions. The beginning skill endeavors are not responsible for the destruction of the diamond. 2 more attempts were demonstrated. Recognizing them, they were convinced that the boys had failed. They stated that this year's examinations were true cowards, because among all participants trust only one person. Rua interrupted them, emphasizing that they agreed to the agreement. Reganis continued to talk about the successful completion of the additional exam, but now his listeners insist on hearing about the main. It's incredibly funny. Do they really think that people without appropriate skills can resist them? By the way, you hear, they say that the one who conducted the additional exam has remained with us. I looked back at others, trying to understand what was happening. The Ryojist argues that during the examination, he completely destroyed the dungeon, and it seems that even Santin himself was in ruins. He conveys the message that the main administrator, a man who sits opposite, will take on all responsibility. Rugo was able to destroy the dungeon, which seemed to him an irresistible task. The curators rushed to check whether the dungeons were destroyed. The ruler of Rindu warns Ruius. If the dungeon is really defeated, he will strike such that Rui will rise into the air completely naked. However, if it is just a banal throw, well done. Returning, the man reported that everything was destroyed. He tells him that if he does not deny, he can explain to them what is happening. The story of what happened. He considers it false because he cannot accept that someone without much ability can dare to such actions. They plan to detain Protogena. He notes that the interlocutor contradicts himself. First he says that he does not recognize him, and then pronounces the threat of arrest. But a person does not pay attention to his remarks. In interrupting, he insists that the importance of the dungeon, which belongs to the kingdom of the Ruble, is to be aware. The Adventure Guild will be asked to return a huge amount of money, and in the future it will not be able to find the arena for testing, because all responsibility will have to take on. It was the examiners who allowed this situation to unfold. A man without delaying his voice, grabbing the hero by the neck, he stated that, given the events, the only way out is to completely put all the guilt on him and get rid of the guy. If everything happens, the head of the exam will be able to atone for his mistake by saving the life of one in no way capable. In this case, it will stop being absolutely useless. He recalls a conversation with a bit. He is convinced that the mighty spirits, as she, are able to create what people call the nucleus of death. The faithful meeting took place in the castle, which, in its essence, resembled a diamond. Only 5 minutes later, unexpected events occurred in the heart of the May. If Ray desires, Devilis will be able to create a new dungeon core immediately after its destruction, because she was ready to fulfill absolutely every desire for Ray. The protagonist demonstrates this attitude, realizing why he states, "Do not worry, leave everything on the ground." Others begin to worry. Title accuses the examiners, claiming that they intentionally set the absurd conditions of the exam in order to prevent those who do not have the necessary abilities. However, even the fact of passing these unrealistic requirements remains insufficient argument. Having outstanding abilities, he can now cope with the problem, not be limited to an uncontrolled comment. He calls that guy a fry as well as, he convinces him to give it to you. After all, they need to fully shift responsibility for him, so he must understand all the consequences. Finally, the swords of inept adventurers rose, rushing directly to the examiner. The ability of steel exoskeleton is activated, forms metal fibers from which it creates perfect armor. That is why it was called iron. Rue says that a young man can be proud of his death at a woman's hands. He struck a blow as a call to justice. He cannot understand why his armor was created. He collects all metal from the outskirts because his fist is solid as metal, and only one thing can resist it. Due to his powerful senses, Ruya tirelessly improved his physical form. There was a barely noticeable pause, and the blow of Pruding immediately met resistance, and instantly escaped back at a terrific speed. He flew and even lost his mastic. He was defeated, and his partner refuses to accept it. He claims that it seems that one of them had to be overcome to pass the first part of the exam, and in fact, he did it. The protagonist is obliged to officially overcome him as the most powerful of all, which allows to pass the Arang adventure test. The examiner burns with anger. His power is striking. He is sure that Ria will not be able to win him, even despite his absence of that special ability. The question is this man the strongest among all these little brothers? Someone orders to start and cannot help but admire her determination, because she is ready for it for the sake of, meet a member of the Guild Board of Adventure Guard. If the exam is officially conducted here, then it is not a place of chaos and bloodshed, but, he asks, who is it? Before him is a child, and the examiner emphasizes that she should beware, because it is a council against her. But a prominent girl, a member of the council who unconditionally manages all the adventures around the world. Although he is not sure how powerful she is, he still decides to worship her. However, Deputy Mario emphasizes that this act is not obligatory. After all, they are only parasites that manage them nominally, but in fact destroy their lives. Ryu is surprised by her so-called modesty and is convinced that she may not be like that. Why last Sots? Does he look so anxious for the last few minutes? Did he experience any truly critical situation? The destruction of the dungeon was not included in his plans, and he realizes that the council will no longer be able to avoid the misery. Since the situation had already reached a critical point, he stated that this crime was personally committed by a talentless person, and therefore immediately decided to make her apologize to the Red King. Continuing his speech, he sincerely says that he was deeply regretting because the Bistamario MP was forced to personally appear in court. He asks whether this man is a guide. If so, it should be responsible for all the events that have taken place. He continues to talk about a condition that cannot be fulfilled if you do not destroy the dungeon. Raya, listening to his spells, expresses unexpected surprise. She continues, emphasizing that this act is a typical male waste. Bistamario asks Ruby if he really destroyed the dungeon. The guy confirms that he has enough money. The girl asks how it was possible to do it. The hero explains that he went down to the lowest point, and then, without delay, struck. The council member once again asks him about the blow, which hit the nucleus itself. Ruya replies, "If doubt, let him not believe," but the girl notes that she only wanted to see, and he no doubt got into the target. The responsibility for conducting the exam lies with its supervisor. The test was organized without the permission of the board members, although they initiated this procedure. The endeavors deprived of proper abilities have become a real shock, immersing everyone in a state of absolute shock. Mario heard anything about organizing an additional exam for those who are deprived of the necessary abilities.